you gotta hit that button I just hit now.
All right, good morning, or good evening, everyone, right? Let's be sometime.
I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Scio Township Planning Commission for March 28th, 2022. And have a roll call, Commissioner Chang.
Roll call, here we go. Commissioner Moore,
Present.
Commissioner Chen, yes. Commissioner Cornell,
Present.
Commissioner Hyde,
Present.
and Commissioner Culbertson.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum.
All right, we have an agenda that's been posted. Do we have any revisions or corrections to the agenda?
Move adoption of the agenda.
Moved by Commissioner Moore. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Hyde. All right, any discussion?
You need one?
This is what I need right there.
You can take that.
Thank you.
All right.
This one.
All right, I have here's an agenda too.
Oh, thank you.
All right, no discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Moving on to communications and correspondence. We did get a few emails that have been, let's see, I think all of them have been loaded except for the one from, I think it was Helen, new, and that one will be uploaded to be included in the packet for this evening. Any other correspondence that people would like to report?
Not for me.
All right. The other piece of correspondence I think we need to report is we did receive a memo from our planning consultant, Doug Lujan. And do you?
I have a request that we read that to the public so that they could understand it, because I think it's a point of order that it's not clear to everybody why that piece of property is still developable, and I think it would be clearer if it were read to the public.
All right. I'm okay with reading it. That's fine with me. Okay. So this was there was an email from Mr. Brbano, and it had to do with last week we approved the Arbor's Grove site plan, and it had to do with the calculation of the density and why it was a non-conforming property, and why we proceeded with it. And so it was addressed to Mr. Brbano. I read your attached zoning summary and stand firmly by the statements I made at the Planning Commission meeting. The subject site is a non-conforming lot of record and thus may be used for the purposes proposed. My research shows that the 5-acre minimum did not exist at the time of the property being rezoned back in 1988. A 1982 version of the zoning ordinance only required a ½ acre, and a full version from 1997 showing various amendment dates from the late 80s through 1990 specifically only required 1 acre for what was then referred to as an R2V2 low-density multifamily residential zoning development, residential zoning district. Further, in reviewing our company files, I find that the acreage for the MR2 zoning district was increased from 1 acre to 5 acres as part of a 2002 update to the township zoning ordinance. Thus, this is clearly and without question a non-conforming lot of record. And that's sort of a legal term based on section 36399A, non-conforming lots of record of the Scio Township Ordinance. A permitted principal structure and use and customary accessory structures and uses may be erected or placed on any single lot of record at the effective date of the adoption or amendment of the ordinance from which this chapter is derived. Such lots must be in separate ownership and not contiguous with other lots in the same ownership. This provision shall apply even though such lot fails to meet the requirements for area, width, or both that are generally applicable in the district, provided that yard dimensions and requirements other than these apply to the area, width, or both, or the lot shall conform to the regulations for which the district in which the lot is located. Variance of yard requirements shall be obtained only through action of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The above section indicates that the parcel may be used as zoned as long as the other provisions of the ordinance, except lot area, width, or both, can be met. On a side note, I've been working very closely with representatives of the Parkwood Condominium, Mr. Bob Zinser, during the review of the site plan and prior, and have tried to be available for multiple calls and questions about this property over the course of the last year or more. I've always been accessible, upfront, and transparent with Mr. Zinser, and I find the accusatory tone of the analysis disappointing. This is not a convenient hedge, as you state. This is how zoning nonconformity works. Municipalities must respect the rights of property owners when it comes to existing lots, buildings, or uses when a change to zoning occurs. A municipality cannot zone a property owner's rights out of existence. Thus, the provisions that deal with nonconformities are found in every zoning ordinance in the state of Michigan. Further, I did not say, nor is it true, that the parcel is totally exempt from existing Scio ordinance. The lot is only exempt from the lot area requirement of 5.0 acres. All other zoning standards must be met. As seen from the site plan, they have been met. As zoning administrator for Scio Township, this determination may be appealed to the Scio Township Zoning Board of Appeals. If you would like to make an appeal of this decision, please contact Ms. Franzuma at the township offices, and she can prepare the proper application for you. Thank you, Doug Lujan.
Thank you, Chairperson.
All right, any other communications or correspondence? Seeing none, we have presentations requested by the Planning Commission. There are none. And so I will open public comment. And citizens wishing to address the Planning Commission on matters which are not on the public hearing tonight. So this would be anything other than Woodview comments, or any other portion of the agenda, or seek information on other matters. Such oral presentations shall be limited to 3 minutes, except a representative or spokesperson of an organization shall have 5 minutes. And because this is a hybrid meeting, we will start with those who are in the audience here first, and then we'll work with Laura to identify those online who raise their hands, or if they're dialing in by phone, indicate they're raising their hands. So with that, we'll open public comment at, I think, about 7:10. And so anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission on anything other than Woodview Commons this evening? Step on forward, and Planning Commission bylaws indicate that you should sign in and indicate your name and address. And there's a public comment sign-in sheet. If you would use that, you can make your comments first and then sign in.
I attempted to send a couple of videos for the Parkwood Condominium Association. The file was too big. I do have it on this thumb drive. I would like to play this along with the photos that we sent. Is that available? We attempted it the last meeting. A lady had a video that we tried to play. We couldn't play it. I do have video this time that should play. Can I play it?
Okay, now we did receive a link to the video, if it's the same video.
The video would not load. It was too big. I have the 2 files on this thumb drive. I'd like to show, please.
Okay, that'd be fine. And I think we did get a link to it that does show.
We have it. I have
You
the
did
video.
have you probably got the photos, but you didn't get
No, I got the video.
We also got the video.
You didn't
and-
get my video, because I know it didn't.
Okay, so
Load.
we have 2 videos then. All right. Maybe fine.
It's going to be under Parkwood Arbor's folder. Once you open that folder, it'll say water at 5491 Park Grove.
Sorry, say again.
The folder is Parkwood Arbor's Grove. If you twiddle down, there'll be a series of clips in there, images. One will state Parkwood water at 5491.
Okay, and sir, may we have your name and address, please?
I'm Kevin Jackson, 5491 Park Grove Road.
This item is encoded in a format that's not supported.
Do you have QuickTime on your computer?
This is not my machine. This is the township's machine.
Okay, well, let me speak to the photos that you do have and the video that didn't get uploaded. It's interesting that this process allows a developer to answer questions after they presented their presentation, but impacted residents could only speak for 3 minutes, and it appeared as though our comments fell on deaf ears. The photos that you have and the video that is not playable tonight will show that there will be significant water issues if the 35 units are allowed to be built. If a lower number is allowed to be built, I'm assuming that the water runoff will not be as significant as it is with the 35 units. There is flooding, there is water runoff, there is inconvenience with the amount of rainwater that we received the last 2 days. The video that I submitted was from months ago, but it's indicative of what occurred just a couple of days ago. I believe the Planning Commission acted prematurely and under the threat of now or never when the vote was stated to be taken. If you had seen these water videos, I believe you would have tabled the act and you would have allowed for more research to be done on the amount of water that that property generates. I also have a question for the Planning Committee, which I'm not sure if you can answer or not. But it's my understanding that Arbor Groves needs our drain to complete their project. My question to the Planning Committee is, who gives the authority for one property owner to impinge on another property owner to use their drain? Can anybody answer that question for me, please?
I mean, I can ask Sally, she's here, if she wants to answer that question. I'm gonna ask her to unmute. Sally?
Good evening. As the drain you're talking about is a county drain, that authority goes to the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner's office. And they have not yet approved this project. They are still reviewing it, as are we. So this is only preliminary approval. There's still full detailed engineering, full stormwater calculations, a lot more research that needs to be done before they get final approval to build.
Once that is completed, will the residents of Parkwood be informed of that decision prior to it being made?
It is only public record after the review has been completed. You can contact Washtenaw County Water Resources to get their review ahead of time, but often they don't release that until they are done and it goes into public record.
Okay. So again, my comments would be, I believe the Planning Committee acted prematurely without seeing the evidence of the water issues that we have when great volumes of water run through that property. And that's my statement.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the planning commission? Please.
Good evening. My name is Bill Doty. I'm 465 Woodgrove Drive. I've been a resident of Parkwood for Condominium Association for 23 years. A little bit of background. On March 14th, in the wake of the sophisticated PowerPoint presentation by the developer, I'm talking about the Aubrey Grove residential development program SP 21021. During that final business session, which was a give and take conversation with the commissioner and the developer, we had no opportunity whatsoever to join in or partake in that vital conversation, other than in the earlier public comments, which had no chance to respond. March 14th was the first time the site plan came before the commission, and Parkwood reasonably requested that it be tabled to allow additional consideration. The commission was given direction that approval was urgent, now or never, and at the present juncture, Parkwood respectfully asks the commission to closely evaluate and consider this topic: units too close to the wetland. There's a Scio ordinance, township ordinance, chapter 36, zoning, articles 11, section 36-342. During our February 18th research, we came across a file reference that Scio requires a 30-foot buffer surrounding the regulated wetland. And I know it was brought up in the March 14th meeting, but there was no further explanation of it or answer to that question. Parkwood we're not an expert in that evaluation of that. And we don't have the staff to immerse themselves in the study of that. The ordinance speaks to 3 zones. The first zone is a 15-foot gap. The second is 30, and then the outer is 10 feet. So what I'm saying is these units are too close to the wetland. The wetland is 0.4 acres in the northeast corner of that parcel, and there's a distinct finger of the wetland that extends beyond the southwest corner. That wet finger along the southern border of the wetland is too close to the proposed units 16 through 20. The rear of 17 is representative in line, flush with the adjacent units 16 through 20. And Parkwood has a reduced site. We have a site plan that's a reduced copy, so we have figured 40 feet equals 0.438 inches. So we figure that the distance from unit 17 is only 14 feet from the wetland. This element warrants investment of both time and investigation. And shouldn't an ordinance violation be aired in a public hearing so that we have a chance to have comment? Parkwood respectfully submits the above evidence supporting too close proximity to the Aubrey Grove units to the wetland in violation of the existing ordinance. Normally, we would ask the commission to not approve the site plan 21021, with Parkwood cordially offering not to oppose a more realistic density. Recognize this proposal has an extremely high density of 35 units on these 3.8 buildable acres. Thank you.
Just a reminder to try and keep to your 3 minutes, please. Commissioner Hyde.
Trying to think of how to put this, but could we have points of fact that we could bring up if one of us cared to in response to comments, or should we hold that for time, or I have a response? I don't know our bylaws.
I think we can, if it's okay for commissioners, if there is a point of fact that someone wants to bring up in response to a public comment, I don't think that's up to you.
It's up to you.
Commissioners, are you,
Should we wait till public comment?
do you want to wait till the end of public comment?
Or do we want to do it when there's someone who's just put out some information?
Commissioners?
I wanted to speak to that. Now, I can speak to it later.
You typically waits until all public
Public
comment
comment?
is done, but we don't have to be bound by that. I think it makes
I
more
can
sense to do it in the moment. I would be agreeable to that.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Commissioner.
About the previous speaker's statements about the encroaching on the wetlands, the developer had proposed impacting the one wetland in the northeast corner somewhat. And so they would build a retaining wall along the perimeter of the wetlands at the 30-foot limit, the boundary that they're allowed to build up to, and build beyond the retaining wall. So they are impacting that finger, but they are not impacting the 30-foot buffer beyond that point. So just so that you understand what they have proposed, not whether you agree with it, not whether you disagree with that, but they did propose an impact on that, and they will have to get that approved in their permitting.
Excuse me, who would make that approval?
Well, both the township and the state. So Eagle has a permit, and they have an application to Eagle, they'll have an application to the township, and I don't recall who it is. Is it our planners?
It will be approved as part of the final site plan at the township board.
So it must be approved by them, or it doesn't go forward. So there's still approvals needed, but that's what they proposed. I just wanted it to be clear. They are putting in a retaining wall that is outside of the 30-foot zone, except for where it encroaches on that one finger that comes out further out than they want to accommodate. So they have to ask for that to be approved.
If I may, it seems like a retaining wall is going to then hold the wetland back to protect their property from damage. But there is no retaining wall at the Parkwood, north and east walls. So therefore, the water would be free to flow, as Mr. Jackson was talking about.
I understand the concern.
May I speak to that?
So I'm done.
So our next speaker, so go ahead and state your name and address and go ahead.
I'm Alan Brbano, also of Parkwood Condominiums. I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I was the subject of Mr. Lujan's note. So I'm kind of standing down on my original note to him because it appears that I've got his attention now. And I will, in terms of information that I was requesting. So he sent an email, that particular email to me, so I will kind of, I just read it just a couple hours ago, so I will kind of process that and get back to him in some sense with questions or whatever I may have regarding that. I'll finish with a portion of my original my original letter. But speaking to the retaining wall, just for a moment, that retaining wall, I'm very familiar with the site plan itself in terms of the drawing. So that retaining wall is not 30 feet from the wetland by any means. It appears to be right on the edge of the wetland. So what Bill Doty was speaking to was, we see that retaining wall is defining the wetland. And when you measure from that on the drawing to scale and so forth and so on, it looks, per his notes, it looks to be about 15 feet to the back side of that first unit, or several units, there's 4 or 5 units. But I'm not sure, again, it would be very helpful for us to sit down and be a party of that discussion and have someone, lay it out, look at these drawings. I'm an engineer, so I know what I'm looking at. And just talk about this 30-foot and the retaining wall, because it doesn't look like it's there. Like I said, it looks like 15 feet to the first unit, and I'm not sure whether 30 feet rolls into that conversation, but I'd be open to finding out, put it that way.
They could meet with our planner.
Yeah, and I do appreciate, you all are very interested, and there are some impacts, definitely, you've had issues with water and so forth, and I know one of, and Laura wasn't here last time, but one of the conditions of the site plan is that they do need to work with your condominium association, and so, I think working with also means meeting with, right? So I just want to emphasize that I think you all have definitely gotten, the township's attention and so forth, and I think it'll be a good sit down to, review also what the Washtenaw County, the water resources review, and I have to say that the township approved Parkwood. Some of those condominiums are in a floodplain, so that's sort of an existing condition. And so I think it would be good to sort of understand what the water's doing, because that is a part of this site plan, and the Water Resources Commission can also be, the Water Resources can be involved in that discussion, so that everybody kind of understands what the hydrology of the place is and how you can minimize the impact on your properties as well.
Understood. And part of the conditions, and you just mentioned that Parkwood would be a party to those meetings. Can you describe that? Because we are very interested in what's going to happen next, because you have a list of conditions, 7, 8 of them, whatever. We're very interested in being at the table for those discussions, and I mean all of those discussions, not just, hearsay, we get information coming back. In this process, we'd like to be a part of it. What is your understanding of that?
Well, I'm not sure I have a complete understanding of that, but other than, Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about the process? Because obviously they have to complete more engineering and more applications and so forth. And at what point would, be appropriate to kind of work with the condominium association?
So probably the next step is, we're waiting for them to submit their final detail engineering and site plan to the township. And at that time, that's when we are looking to see if they have their water resources approval, all their Eagle wetland information. And we gather all of that. We review it and make sure all the planning commission conditions have been met, and the engineer is working towards that final engineering approval. And they have to have all of that before it will go to the board for their final approval. So I think at the point where the township receives that detail engineering plan, that's when we would be looking for them to meet with you, if that's a condition of, I wasn't here, so I just want to make sure that was a condition of the approval.
Yeah, it is a condition of the approval.
So that's when we would be looking to them to schedule a meeting with the Parkwood neighbor group, and we'd want to see the results of that meeting. Whether we attend it just a person that is viewing what's happening, or if there are minutes of that meeting, we want some proof or some information from that meeting as a condition, as to qualify that condition has been met. But then, in addition to that condition, all the other conditions of the planning commission and all the detail engineering and outside agency reviews will have to be completed, and then it will go to the township board for final approval.
And when you say that meeting, that's a meeting that we would be aware of?
Yeah, they would. It's a meeting they're going to have to work with your neighborhood group to set up. That's a meeting between you and the developer.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor it, but it sounds like as soon as the site plan gets corrected or revised and comes to them, at that point, we will be at the table to see that as well. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know about being at the table, I don't know what that means exactly.
That
But
means
my suggestion is that, because I read Mr. Lujan's memo too, and I think he's open to meeting with anybody, be it the association or a group of neighbors, to talk about that, and he would be open to your request to know when that water resource recommendation comes back. And then also, I think being at the table speaks to your group or you or the association, whoever that is, needs to meet with the developer about the issue as well. Try to rectify that, because that's part of the condition, the developer has to do that.
We've had a fair amount of difficulty getting good information. And I don't mean good information, I mean information in general, because when, I can go back and give you dates in November that we weren't aware of when the site plan was initiated, when the file here at the township was initiated, we found out way late in the game. So our sources here have been not so great, okay? So that's partly why we're very concerned about the process.
Yeah, so we just say this, it's not to get in touch with me or Commissioner Hyde, it's to get in touch with Doug Lujan.
Yeah.
He is to be responsive, and he's sort of, I'm fair to say, he's our Scio Township contracted planner.
Yeah, so we have one of our people at the Parkwood is a contact of Doug Lujan, so that is established as the letter noted.
I would suggest that you get the question of the 30-foot buffer clarified and not wait until the developer does all their planning. So Mr. Lujan can explain what was in the preliminary so that everybody understands.
That's very good, thank you very much. So I'll just be real brief in terms of my original item and just kind of emphasize from a Parkwood standpoint, this will be kind of my final summary here, which is just to make the commission aware of, and obviously down the line we'll be reiterating this point, and that is that this is an extremely high density proposal that we're looking at here. 2 weeks ago, I gave you a little overview personally of community composition with units and acreage and ratios. We have ourselves compared to this AG community, and then there's Country French Estates to the west. So there's all of that, but in general, it's a very high density item, and we're very attuned to that as far as being out of sync with our community. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Oleg Mikhailenko. I live at 5475 Park Row. And you didn't have an opportunity to see the videos, but I mailed those to you.
Yep, I got him, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And this is, we've had a problem, water problem with it right along. Our sump pumps are working continuously, they're replacing those continuously. And the water has no place to go because of the way it's carved and so forth. So by the photos you see that my whole backyard is mush. Now it dries up and you can go out there and use it. But we would appreciate if we would not get additional water on top of what we already have. So the unit probably should have basements, but that's not here yet. It's too late now. Thank you.
I have just one more suggestion for the Condominium Association. I think it would, just because of the issue that you have with even your existing water and some of your units being in a floodplain, I would suggest that the Condominium Association request a meeting with the Water Resources Commission and ask what you can also do with your situation. That will also flag the situation for them as they're reviewing the developer's proposal. And the Water Resources Commission is, they have a lot of resources, and there may be some things that the Condominium Association can do itself too. And then, and as they're working, you know, with the new development as well. So I would encourage you to
Appreciate
request a meter.
We've
meeting
had,
with them too.
there's a problem there. We've had even water coming across Zeb Road from the west across. And at one point, the water was right up to my deck. And,
Yeah, and this is
and I think
exactly
that's
what
you'll see on
they're
the
there for.
photographs.
Yeah, this is exactly what they're there for.
Mr. Oleg,
Yeah.
this photo here, is this a downward looking photo?
Yeah, that's
This
looking
is your
from my
home?
bedroom windows, and there's water in a well, in a window well. Also, the neighbor, I'm the third unit from the west. And so the neighbor next to me, both of them have the same situation. Now, we've retrenched, we've cleaned out the equipment, you know, we hired people with cameras, found out if there was any hole, plug someplace. That's all been taken care of, but there's just too much coming in. And if currently the people are building, they're not going to have basement, but they're going to be occupying a lot of ground. There'll be less ground that'll be soaking the water in. So therefore, what's going to be happening, you got pavement, you got sidewalk if they put them in, and the square footage of the cement floors and so forth, that's going to be absent. That's not going to soak the water in. That has to be directed someplace. We've enlarged our retention pond. We're still, and that's full. So
These are all
we
things
cannot
you-
take somebody else's water there.
The Water Resource Commission.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be very good for you to point out. The other thing that I would encourage you to do is, because we're going to have even more significant rain events, is I would like, you know, someone from the Condominium Association to flag this as a vulnerable area under flooding with Resilient Washtenaw. There's a resilientwashtenaw.org site. You go into the co-urbanized mapping, and you can flag it as, we have flooding in this area currently. And I just want to make sure it gets registered as a vulnerable site.
I was on that just a couple of weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
and I saw the floodplain and so forth.
Yeah.
Our condos are not in that.
Okay.
To the east side, there is a retention.
There is, and so
There
you're
is.
still experiencing flooding,
And
even though
across the
you're not
street,
in the
there's a lot.
floodplain. That's really important to know. That's really important to know as
Thank you
far
again.
as a vulnerability. Thank you. Thank you for signing in too. All right, is there anyone else?
There is a gentleman, Jonathan Greenberg, that has their
All
hand
right,
raised. Oh, there's several hands raising.
sorry, I will get rid of this.
So I'm going to allow Jonathan Greenberg to provide his comments. Jonathan?
Hi. How's everyone doing tonight? Thank you for taking my call. I guess it's not really a call. Thank you for taking my Zoom. I want to share with you a couple of conversations I've had with Doug Lujan over the years. I also like to wonder out loud why a contractor hasn't been put up for bid in the last 20 years. Just keep getting rehired. When I first bought my property in Scio Township, I went to talk to Spalding Clark about development, future, meets and bounds, or PUD. I was young, didn't know a lot. Spoke with Spalding. He told me that there was no, quote, no way in hell I'll ever develop any land along Park Road. We're keeping it rural. But he suggested that if I didn't like that answer, I could talk to Doug Lujan. So I'd never met Doug before. I made an appointment with him, met with him, and he pretty much reiterated what Spalding told me, was that Park Road won't be developed. And I do believe Spalding made a comment that I wasted my money purchasing this land. Well, Trailwoods is here now. I've sold most of it, 35 out of the 40, and I have a nice home on 5 acres. The second time I met with Doug was after a group of developers tried to start a development here on the Grant's property, the Jackson's property, and ours. And it didn't work out after a while. And I went back to Doug and I said, hey, Doug, look, these guys just came in here with the proposal. It didn't work because they weren't willing to bend, but you know, what can we do? What can we work out? His answer to me was, you're in no position to do this. Either go get a developer or don't talk to us. Now, he said it nicer than that, but that was the end of it. I attempted to talk to him again at other times, and he would meet with me and talk, but the conversation was just basically, you can either develop your land by meets and bounds or go find a developer because we're not going to work with you. Well, I found a developer, and Trailwoods is here. Doug Lujan does not do service for the residents. He works, apparently, for the developers that have Scio Township's blessing. I think you should put his role, his position up for bid. He is a contractor. He is not an employee. He is not guaranteed a job. His firm is not guaranteed a job. Why is Scio not protecting their resources by looking for better value? The second question I have is for Trustee Courteau. Trustee Courteau wears her ecology on her shirt sleeve. She purports to be a ecological savior and a tree hugger. Yet, I'm speaking for a group of people. When she and more
I'm sorry, Mr. Greenberg.
you gave another person more than 3 minutes. I'm going to finish my sentence.
But I
Courteau,
don't like it when you say you're speaking for a group of people and you did not say that at the beginning.
I'm sorry, I didn't write down any notes. I'm
Please
just
identify the group you are speaking for.
Sure. I'm speaking for the Repeal Doug Lujan Committee of Park Road. The other question I would like to ask is why Trustee Courteau continues to behave or act like a environmentalist when she's willing to approve the destruction of 400 and some trees. Again, this group, Doug Lujan and Scio Township, is here not for the residents, but for the developers and for their own best interests. And I think it's time it changes. It's disgusting what these folks are dealing with the party barns and everything else. You people don't enforce anything unless it's to your advantage. And that's what I've seen for the last 30 years as a resident of Scio Township. And quite frankly, I love the fact that we can address you and tell you that. So thank you for taking my call or conversation and giving me a few extra seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Is there anyone else?
Jillian, okay, and allow her to speak. Jillian?
Good evening. Okay, you can hear me here. Good. Yeah, I attended in person the last Planning Commission meeting and supporting residents, as I usually do. And I was thinking after that this has to do with the party or the Heron Party Barn, and I'm going to call it that plan because that's exactly what it is. So after I listened to everybody and you had come up with an idea to gather a couple of planning commissioners, the Herons, and some residents in the area, and within the next couple months, and sit down and work things out. They didn't really sit well, I mean, even at that time, but the more I thought about it, there's, and all of you, if I remember correctly, have had a conversation here and there about Scio has a problem with enforcement. So thinking about the Herons' plans and what is in there, they don't have vines planted. We all know that. They don't have a viable farm. We all know that. A couple hay bales doesn't matter. So going back to our ordinance, section 36-149, agricultural, commercial, tourism business. The intent of the township is to allow through conditional land use permit uses of a commercial tourism nature that are complementary and accessory to the primary agricultural land use in the A1 zoning district. Now, the key words here are complementary and accessory. So the point I'm going to make is if Scio Township, and this means every single one of you, cannot follow our own ordinance, how are you going to, why would you sit down and create a plan and help the Herons with their party barn project? It does not meet our ordinance. So if you go ahead with this the way it is, you are violating our own ordinance. Scio Township needs to step up and start doing things by statute, ordinances, policies, and procedures. That's why residents have been in turmoil for a long time over many different items. So that's all I have to say. Please consider thinking about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Helen, did you want to speak? I don't know if I lowered your hand. I'm going to allow Helen, you to talk.
Yes, my name is Helen New, and I live at 537 Woodgrove. That's the last building on the south end of Woodgrove. I am actually coming in from California. Otherwise, I would have been at the meeting. I came in a little late. I had sent an email with photos. I don't know whether that was read.
Yeah, we did not get it uploaded, but it will be uploaded as part of the correspondence of the meeting. So and the Planning Commission did receive it.
Okay, because I sent several photos of flooding that one were photos from behind, I'm in the very last building on the south end of Woodgrove. I sent photos at the end behind us that flooding that comes from the stream that runs from the proposed Arbors Grove property back around the side of the last building in back that I took on March 28th, 2020. And then I sent others that are much more recent from February of this year of the land across Woodgrove into what is proposed for the Arbors Grove development. So the photos show that the water came both in back, came very, very close to our building, and the grass is absolutely waterlogged when we have heavy rains, like I gather you're having now. I'm not there to see, and comes all the way up to the cement slabs outside our doors. I'm very concerned about this. I actually did something very similar to Jonathan Greenberg, whom I don't know, even though he appears to be a neighbor. Before I bought my property 20 years ago, I went to the township office to make sure, because I love the woods. That was one of the 2 or 3 motivations for my buying. I went to make sure that I wanted to find out, was there going to be building either in front or in back? And I was assured that no, these were wetlands that could never be built upon. So I'm very concerned about this, both because I love the trees, I love the woods, but also I've already dealt with flooding. And I think that the development as large and as dense as being proposed will exacerbate what is already a very fragile situation with respect to flooding. So I really implore you to reconsider the plans that have been submitted by the developer so that you limit the number of units proposed, that we increase the distance between their buildings and Parkwood condos, and so that we reduce the likelihood of any further flooding into Parkwood. So I'd like to thank you for your consideration and hope that you will look at those photos. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Boyd. Pam?
Hi. Are you calling on me? I'm not hearing anything.
Yes, Pam, go ahead.
Thank you. Pam Boyd, a Scio resident. Technical comment. The woman, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, running the Zoom. You're very hard to hear. Can you lean into your microphone
You know what you can do? You can also turn it on. That might, yeah, there you go. Yep.
Yes, please. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
so much. Yep, you're welcome.
That's it?
Do you have anyone else?
No one else has their hand raised.
And I'll just say, for everyone's benefit, Laura, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure,
Yeah.
so I'm Laura Krebs. I am a planner with Brbano Associates. I work with Doug Lujan. I have been working with Scio Township for probably 10 or more years, doing development reviews. And prior to COVID, I was attending these planning commission meetings very regularly. So it's nice to be back in person. So nice to
Thank
see
you.
everyone.
So I'm sorry, we didn't introduce Laura earlier, so that's my faux pas. Thank you. Anyone else who wants to address?
No other hands are raised.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
All right. Support. Any further discussion? All right, then we'll close public comment. I need a roll call vote.
Good. Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Corto,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, then we're closed at 7:51. All right. So, all right. So we'll move on to our business session, and we do have an advertised public hearing this evening and it's for OA PUD number 22001, PSP 22004, Woodview Commons PUD amendment. This was an advertised public hearing, and so I'd like to open the public hearing for Woodview Commons PUD amendment, and we'll start with the same rules apply, 3 minutes unless you're representing a group. And we start with the applicant who will present the amendment. Then we'll move to Carlisle Wortman and OHM, and then we'll open it up for public who are here and public online. So with that, we'll welcome the applicant either online or in person.
Take both.
Okay, a little of both? A hybrid applicant, great.
Got the slides. Yeah, so when the mouse moves around, he's doing it, not me. I'm not a magician. Nor am I. Okay. Good evening. Do I have to keep this on for the presentation, or can I?
We'd love people to keep them on, but if obviously it fogs your glasses or something like that functionally, you can remove it.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Good evening. Nice to see all of you again, although I see some new faces in the crowd. My name is David Stolman, and I'm here tonight representing Jackson Road Sobey LLC, the petitioner for tonight's amended and restated Woodview Commons preliminary PUD plan. I'm here with Matt Bush, our civil engineer, who represents the Atwell firm, and David Nims, our architect, who represents Hobson Black. He's back that way. As background to tonight's presentation, I'd like to take a step back and provide a little history as to why we are here tonight and why we have submitted an amended PUD plan to the township when we were just recently approved in October of last year.
So we know the history and the background, but I mean, just so you know, we know why you did an amendment, we requested it, et cetera, roughly.
Okay.
But if you want to go through that, that's fine.
I would as part of the record, if that's okay. I'll try and be quick, though. If you'll recall, over 2.5 years ago, we submitted a preliminary PUD site plan for Woodview Commons. The original plan was a mixed-use development comprised of commercial retail buildings, a self-storage facility, and a variety of residential dwelling types, including stacked flats, townhomes, and attached ranches. The project received unanimous approvals from the township throughout the preliminary and final PUD approval process. In the early summer of 2021, several months after receiving a unanimous recommendation from this body for final PUD approval, a great blue heron rookery was discovered in the township-owned nature preserve that is located directly south of Woodview Commons. Immediately after being notified of the great blue heron rookery, we began working with the township at their request to study options to accommodate the rookery despite the absence of any state or federal regulations governing the preservation of these nesting areas. In October of 2021, the Scio Township Board of Trustees approved the final Woodview Commons PUD plan, but simultaneously requested that we study options to redesign the approved site plan to increase the radius of area surrounding the nest to a 300-meter area of limited disturbance. After many months of exploring all options to accommodate the township's request, we are proud to be in front of you tonight with this amended plan. While the original plan and the amended plan before you tonight are the same in spirit and intent, nearly the same in massing and density, and retain a mix of uses, the original plan has been modified to provide significant protection and buffering for the rookery. The amended and restated PUD plan has moved virtually all land development improvements, I don't know if you can show it on the mouse, and homes outside of the township requested 300-meter rookery buffer zone. The minimal construction within the 300-meter rookery buffer zone is only the rear of 9 ranch units and a necessary detention basin. Construction will be time limited to avoid the nesting season of February 14th through August 1st. With that background, I'd like to provide a detailed overview of the amended PUD plan, and my team and I are happy to answer any questions you have. On the screen in front of you are both the original approved PUD plan and the amended plan, which we are seeking a recommendation of approval from you tonight. While I would like to highlight the differences in the plan, I would like to point out first and foremost that the plans are very similar, virtually identical. That said, let's discuss the changes that directly relate to the rookeries. First, as you can see, the amended PUD plan pushes land development and homes and home construction to the north, creating the 300-meter rookery buffer zone that I described earlier. Second, while the original PUD agreement made mention of a public pathway through the site, our amended plan shows the public use pathway and is part of this site plan. Note that the location of the pathway has been adjusted to not only be farther away from the rookery, but at the same time, at the request of the township, it connects to the township nature preserve east of the property. What else?
Can we put that plan back up?
He's controlling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're connecting issues.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
Spinning wheels.
oh dear. Yep.
I'll ad hoc, like this one.
I'll get it up there as
We
soon as I
have it in our
can.
pack, but.
So let me close and rejoin, keep talking.
Okay.
Okay, the previous approved plan connected farther to the south, closer to the rookeries. Third, as an ancillary result of the shift of development to the north, tree removal has been reduced by approximately 10%, saving 157 trees, and open space has increased by approximately 4%, which is calculated to be 2.2 acres. In addition to these modifications, market-driven changes were also made to the plan. First, retail units shown on the original plan along Jackson Road on the western half of the property have been replaced by a 19,800 square foot single-tenant or multi-tenant medical office building. The reason for this modification is that our market research has indicated that medical office is a needed use in Scio Township that is undersupplied, and that this location at the intersection of Baker and Jackson Roads is well suited to this use and provides easy access to a broad area. No luck, man?
Got it back. Wow. There we go. Technical difficulties.
There we go. Okay. Second, the 68,000 square foot two-story self-storage facility shown on the original plan has been replaced with additional apartments. The reason for this change is that after speaking to other storage facility owners in and out of this market and commercial brokers in the area, we learned that there's an oversupply of self-storage in the area and that the previously approved proposed location behind the Tractor Supply had visibility issues that made the facility unattractive and impractical. Third, we've refined the retail building in two respects. The building has been adjusted to incorporate what the architects call a Paseo, which is a 16-foot wide outdoor walkway between the retail buildings, which allows customers to stroll between both sides of the buildings and access both parking fields more easily. Moreover, the Paseo allows room for a seating area to improve the attractiveness of the retail space and provides a better overall customer experience and creates a sense of place. The other change to the retail building is that to enhance the street-facing elevation of the retail building facade, additional projections were provided. It's not working?
It's just not, it says sharing screen, it's up there, it's not sharing the right slide.
Okay.
Here we go.
It's just really unresponsive.
Okay.
But we'll do our best.
Okay. I'll talk slower. Yeah, I know, 4 hours later. Where was I? Okay, so we've enhanced the street-facing elevation of the retail buildings, adding additional projections, along with strategically placed glazing that wraps the corners of the tenant spaces for additional views. And Matt should be highlighted in those areas. Historically, changes such as these enhance both the shopper and the retail experience. The next market-driven change was that the 156-bed senior care facility on the original plan has been replaced by a 92-unit elevator-served 4-story apartment building. The reason for this change is that a new nearby assisted living facility is in the approval process, the Encore at Heritage Woods Village project, which is a 120-bed assisted living facility proposed on the north side of I-94 and Baker Road. Because of that proposed facility, we felt we could supply a more flexible housing type that is attractive to a broader group of residents, including independent seniors, and would fill a niche in the housing market. Our 4-story apartment building will have exclusive dedicated amenities, including a pool, outdoor patio, and a workout facility. It targets tenants, including seniors, that want a more communal, elevator-served living experience. I would also like to discuss the overall height of the proposed luxury 4-story apartment building and the proposed deviation related to it. The building, as noted in Laura's letter, in the Carlisle Wortman letter, is suggested to be 6 feet higher than the senior care facility that was previously approved. However, and if Matt can get the slide up, that would make everything really clear. Not working?
No, not at all.
Dramatic pause. Oh, okay. Yeah, if you could. Okay. He's gonna pass out the printout of what would have been on the screen, but for, got it?
Comparison of the previous approval with the new flat roof.
Yeah, it's not a 4-story. No, it's
Yeah, I think we've been having some more issues with access.
I promise I've used Zoom a billion times.
Actually, no, this is a technology access issue.
Well, the piece of paper that David has passed around basically shows you a comparison between the old senior care facility and the new and the 4-story apartment building. What I was going to say is, and let me see where I was. That on the Carlisle Wortman letter, it says that it's 6 feet higher. On that slide, you'll see that this is a deviation that really is in terms of nomenclature, and it's not substantive. The previous approved senior care facility had a height to the center of the roof gable of 39 feet 3 inches above the first floor, and 47 feet 6 inches to the top of the roof. The proposed 4-story building has a top of parapet elevation of 45 feet above the first floor. So when you actually look at that, and I wish it was on the screen, you would see that there's actually a reduction in height of 2 feet 6 inches. This is really a question of just how you measure the building and whether you're measuring from the top of the building to the, or to the, what would it be, the center, the height of the center of the roof.
It's how the definition of building height is.
Yes. There are also 2 minor adjustments to note in the site plan. The detention basins have been slightly reconfigured and reshaped on the amended plan to accommodate the overall site plan modifications. And secondly, the clubhouse has been adjusted slightly, and the plan provides an adjacent open area for nominal future expansion if necessary. So we've tried to plan ahead that if we need to have a larger clubhouse, we have an expansion area. Now, there might be a slight bit of confusion regarding the overall number of units for the project. If you include I assume the slides now, we got no slides?
I can't, the internet's unstable. So, yeah.
I apologize, but, well, okay, I'll just keep going. If you include the senior housing units in the original approval, the total number of units approved was 580 units. It happened that when we put together the table, the chart that went along with the original plan, for some reason, the number of beds and units for the senior care was not included in that. When the amended, we have technology. The amended plan in front of you shows a total of 548 units. So it has fewer units than the original plan, and again, really has to do with how they calculated it before. The original plan had the beds, but they weren't included in the quote-unquote density or unit count, whereas we've calculated them all together. If you look at the old plan based on the total number of units and the new plan based on the total number of units, we've gone from 580 to 548 units. And it's a little confusing just because of the way the chart worked. Actually, there we go. Can you go back?
Yeah.
No?
I know, it's really bad delay.
Okay. I'll just keep going.
So last time your original was 252 stacked flats, 59 townhouses, 113 attached ranches.
That sounds about right.
It's,
And you'll, yeah, there you go. That's the
You're saying
chart.
those figures did not include the senior facility?
Right, I gotta put my glasses on, but yeah, if you look at that chart, you'll see that where it says approved PUD on the right side, that was what was approved in October. And you'll notice that it's slightly different because the senior care actually is showing up in that chart. It was looked at as square footage as opposed to the number of beds or units in the original approval. When we add in what was the senior facility and those 156 beds, you'll see that the density has actually gone down from 580 to 548. And Laura can confirm that.
Even with the additional apartments
Yes.
on the
Yeah.
north side?
Correct. Next, there should not be any concerns about sewer capacity. We discussed this issue at length with the township during our original plan approval, and OHM confirmed there is plenty of capacity. The signed, fully executed development agreement already contemplates an excess capacity and allocates up to 595 REUs to Woodview Commons. So essentially, we've already have an executed development agreement for 595 REUs. Our proposed plan that we're in front of you today with, as shown on the screen, requires only 584 REUs. So we are not requesting any more REUs than what was originally already approved and executed, for lack of a better word. I will take a moment and say, for those of you that are getting tired of hearing me speak, I'm almost done, I promise. Next item is I would like to respond and clarify the items listed in Carlisle Wortman's review letter. Sorry for stealing your thunder, Laura, but Doug Lujan said we had to present before you did, so blame him. So those are the list of the recommendations from the planning letter that Laura prepared. And let me run through them very quickly. Number one, Planning Commission shall consider if the development strategies and design guidelines have been met. And they agreed that it appears they have. We agree the previous approved plans that met all these requirements, and we believe the new plan does as well. Second item, Planning Commission to consider all newly requested deviations listed in a separate section. And I wanted to spend some time going through this. The original plan had a number of deviations, all of which were approved by the township in the original approved plan. The amended plan before you has two additional deviations, and it's a little confusing. The first one is for the height of the 4-story apartments. which I discussed earlier, and is not a substantive deviation because it really has to do with how the buildings were measured. The new building is actually 2 feet 6 inches shorter. The second additional deviation is an additional deviation for the maximum floor area ratio. It's a 2% increase. This deviation is the result of pushing the project to the north and making the project more vertical in nature, thus staying out of the Blue Heron Rookery buffer zone. So essentially, we're pushing density out of the southern area to create this buffer zone. It's getting pushed to the north, and that's creating an increase in the floor area ratio. It is the natural result of creating more open space and pushing the project to the north, which is what the township has requested us to do. So it's a deviation that's sort of part and parcel with the nature of creating more open space and pushing the project north. Third item, deviations related to the floor area of the A1 zoning district should be modified on sheet 2 to reflect the percentages provided in the site data table. We agree, we'll make this change on the final amended PUD set. 4, Planning Commission will need to affirm the proposed project meets the PUD eligibility criteria. We feel there's been no change to the project that would impact its eligibility under the PUD ordinance. Number 5, Fire Department review of revised layout and circulation. The road layout is virtually the same as the original approved plan, so we do not expect any significant comments from the Fire Department. However, any changes required by the Fire Department will be incorporated in the upcoming final PUD plan set. Number 6, Township Engineer and Washtenaw County Road Commission review additional traffic impacts based on the change to the use mix in the amended plan. A traffic impact analysis was inadvertently left out of the submittal package that we submitted to the township, but it has been subsequently been submitted to the township. Our traffic engineer did a study that, he did study the traffic generated by the proposed amended plan and prepared an addendum. The addendum indicates that traffic impacts between the original plan and the amended plan are de minimis. In his terms, quote, insignificant. No further traffic impacts are necessitated. This traffic report addendum has been submitted to the Washtenaw County Road Commission for its review and approval. I apologize for it not getting into your packet, it just slipped through the cracks. Number 7, review of essential facilities and services by the township engineer and township utility director. The burden on facilities and services are unchanged and were addressed and resolved by the various developer contributions previously agreed to in the original development agreement. And number 8, confirm parking calculations and parking summary on sheet 6. We agree, we will confirm all parking calculations prior to submitting our final PUD plan set. Lastly, the Carlisle-Wortman review letter lists 5 items to be confirmed and or submitted with the final PUD set. We agree with that list of items and will comply with those requirements when we submit the final PUD. In addition to the Carlisle-Wortman planning review letter, we also received a review letter from OHM, the engineering consultant. All of their comments are acceptable to us and we'll make any suggested changes when we resubmit for final PUD approval. Before I conclude, I'd like to take a moment and discuss timing. I'd like to make clear that as a result of accommodating the Blue Heron Rookeries and revising the plan, the amended plan in front of you tonight is a fully engineered site plan that provides the level of detail typically seen at the final PUD review level. Tonight, we are seeking a recommendation for only preliminary PUD approval. As mentioned, all of OHM's and Carlisle-Wortman's review comments will be incorporated into a revised final PUD set, which we will resubmit in the next few weeks. We would very much appreciate an expeditious review of our amended plan tonight, as we have delayed construction of the project for almost a year, redesigning the site plan to accommodate the rookery buffer. But for the requested changes, we would be well into construction at this time. To conclude, we are very, very proud, although you can't see my face, to be here tonight to present this plan to you. We believe that our amended plan is a modern, shining example of private-public cooperation. A thoughtful design that not only protects the sensitive nature of the great Blue Heron Rookeries, but a plan which protects wetlands, provides additional open space, reduces tree impacts, and will deliver a great development within the Scio community that everyone will be proud of. We ask for your recommendation tonight, subject to any engineering and planning comments, so that we can move forward quickly to the Board of Trustees for preliminary approval. We intend to be back before you for the final review in the coming weeks. Matt, David, and I are happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, David did such a great job. I just want to add just a couple clarifications for the planning commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the report. The applicant has met all the design guidelines, it appears, of the master plan and is consistent with the master plan. There are, I think there's 3 deviations, and 2 of those are kind of carryovers from the last plan, but I just want to note them. In addition to the building height, for the apartment building, that's kind of a carryover from the senior living. There's also a request for the freestanding sign for the apartments. That was also granted for the senior living facility that is now asked for a deviation for the apartments. And then the floor area increase for the A1 portion of the development. So those are the only 3 new deviations that the planning commission has to consider. The others have already been approved as part of the original application, and we interpret that as those are the residential density, as David spoke about. We feel that is appropriate. It is in line with what the previous approval was. The PC will need to reaffirm the eligibility criteria has been met, but as we've talked about, this is much the same plan, maybe even a little better plan than what we saw before. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about my report.
Thank you. Sally.
Good evening, everyone. David did a good summary, so my report will also be short and sweet. We do need to confirm the number of RUs. David, I have a slightly different calculation than you, but that is minor and can be worked out before Board of Trustees. As David noted, the traffic report has been revised. There's been a new memo sent to the Washington County Road Commission. Traffic counts actually went down based on the preliminary analysis that was done. So we're, again, expecting approval from them, but have not seen that yet. And then we only had 3 minor site plan comments due to the level of detail on this. The parallel plan does impact that Blue Heron Rookery buffer zone that the township requested. So that's just a note for the planning commission to consider. That is only the parallel plan, not the actual development, but we wanted to make you aware of that. And then there are 2 areas, well, one area where the fire truck turning template is missing, and then we noted a number of conflicts, potential conflicts between parking spaces and those turning templates. So we'll need clarification on those. And then our letter has a number of final site plan comments, but because of the level of detail of this plan, those were provided just as a leg up before final PUD submission on this. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have as well.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, questions, concerns, thoughts?
I have a really
Yeah.
short question first for the planner. Did you say that the signage is pretty much the same, only it's now dedicated to the apartments rather than the deviation? That requests a sign deviation.
Right, so previously they've requested a sign deviation for the senior portion, senior living portion of the project. They have their own freestanding sign along the Boulevard Drive. This will be likely near the same location, but for the apartment component of this plan.
Near the same location and near the same dimension?
That's something we'll look at final site plan.
Okay.
But you allowing, they're not, so this is an additional sign that they would not be allowed.
Right.
So you're allowing the deviation to allow this sign as an independent freestanding sign for the apartment portion of the project.
And it's internal.
It's an internal sign. It will not be seen on Jackson Road. It's strictly along the boulevard, internal boulevard of the development.
It's for wayfinding, so that people, when they pull in, because we have so many mix of uses here, to be able to know where they're headed.
just to follow up on that, so the sign that we approved and the deviation that they want, is that in the same spot where the original sign
I
was?
don't know that it's in the same spot. It's the same type of sign for the same exact purpose.
Is it in the same spot?
Is this a final PUD?
Very close, if not identical. I don't want to say it's in the exact same spot, but it's very close.
Okay, then we have a process question. So you're saying this is preliminary, so your plan is to come back with a final site plan amendment to the
Correct.
planning commission?
That's when we'll see the details.
Yes. And if there's any questions about that, I'll be happy to sit in front of you and go through it as much as possible. My recollection is it's in the same place and is really no different. Sorry, I keep bugging them. And once we get you the details, I don't think you'll have any problem with it.
This may be, I'm not sure if it's a question for the developer or for the consultant. Why 300 meters from the rookery? How do we determine 300 meters? Is that a standard?
The 300 meters, first off, there's no federal or state rules where there's regulations. Give me 1 second, I can tell you. This is from the Michigan Natural Features Inventory, which is sort of the guidelines, if you will, for the state of Michigan that most everyone, I talked to my wetlands consultant, my ecology experts, and that's where they send me. And I can distribute this if you'd like, but on page 3 of this, it states, quote, "To protect nesting colonies from human disturbance, most studies reviewed by Butler," I assume that's a famous professor, "recommend a buffer of 300 meters in which no activity occurs during the season of February 15th to July 31st. We've taken that, and at least from what I've heard, the township has agreed that that should be the distance and timeframes that we should use. Although again, there are no regulations here whatsoever. So we're, to some degree, following guidelines.
What were those dates?
You want me to hand this out? I only have one copy, but I'm happy to share. Or Matt, do you have it on the, can you pull that on? Or I'll just give up on the screen.
If I could log on the
I
internet.
just wanted you to restate the dates.
You can just say the dates, that's fine. It was February, what, 14th and?
It's season of, they do it inverted, they say 15 February, so, but they mean
Yep.
February 15th.
Yeah.
Yep. 15 February to 31 July.
You're in big trouble. Big Scio Township.
Did they work with you?
So,
Go ahead, yeah.
Chair Culbertson.
Thank you.
So we convened a group with representatives from Parks, from LPC, the supervisor. We hired a consultant a wildlife biologist from ECT, which is a major consulting firm, to do a brief report on this. And then there was the intern, the Parks interns who discovered the rookery, who had done their own research, which originally came up with that 300. Our consultant confirmed that, and then they worked very closely with the supervisor around all the information that whole group put together. So there was a lot of process behind that. I mean, I do have a couple of brief questions about that, if I may. So I really appreciate the efforts that you have made, the moving everything north, protecting more trees. It is really a testament to your willingness to help us protect this statewide, this resource that we discovered that's actually a statewide, if not national importance, a rookery of this size. I did have a couple of questions, and one of them is on behalf of the Land Preservation Commission, of which I'm also a member, and they were very curious about what protections you will put on the property within that 300 meters on the south side, the wetlands and the woodlands. Will you have a conservation easement? Would you be willing to perhaps sell that to the township to add to the preserve, or could you tell us about the protections so that we ensure that that's protected in perpetuity?
Absolutely. To start with, if we weren't to do any kind of donation or sale to the township or some township-related thing, there would be a conservation over it. First off, it's designated as open space for the project, so it's staying open space. Putting a conservation easement on top of it is not an issue at all. We have had discussions with the supervisor, with Doug Lujan, with a gentleman by the name of Barry. Yes. We are open to looking at either a donation or a sale. To be frank with you, once this came out, we started having discussions, and then it went to the attorneys to go figure out how to do this. And it's somewhere with the attorneys figuring out how to do it. I spoke to the supervisor, let him know that we are open to that. We need to figure out how to do it and what the proper mechanism related to that is. When I spoke to Barry, one of the issues I brought up, which we got an answer to, was we're providing an easement for that pathway, which is really kind of a swath, I know we can't see it, but it's a swath through the open space. And so the question became, is the pathway getting dedicated or the easement being dedicated to the same government entity as if we were donating that open space area? And after I posed the question, he went back and got back to me and said, yes, it would all get dedicated, conveyed to whatever we're doing exactly, which has not yet fully been fleshed out, but that would all go to Scio Township. So I would expect that as part of our final amended PUD, we'll have an amended development agreement, which I've seen a draft of, that's waiting for some further review and waiting for the conclusion of this meeting to kind of finalize to bring to the township. And that final PUD agreement will have language in it that addresses the topic of either donating it, selling it, however this all shakes out, but that land will stay in perpetuity as open space and be protected. There's a number, just so you have an idea, a number of nuances we'll have to work through. As an example, that pathway, are there hours of where people are allowed to walk or not walk? I assume there's limited hours where 3 a.m. we're not having people walking through the pathway. We need to come up with what uses are allowed within that. So there is some detailed work to do. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, we haven't put any thought to it. We have. It's just we've been really kind of 24/7 working on this plan. There's a lot of work we did in the last few months. I mean, to go ahead and do all this. So, but that, I expect that by the time I'm back in front of you for the final PUD, we'll have a very satisfactory answer to you on that. There's no reason for us not to go ahead and, whether it's a conservation easement or the land gets donated or conveyed or sold, it'll be protected. The exact way we figure all that out, I'll leave that to the suits, I guess you'd say.
One issue that I am concerned is that we're relying on that as open space for the PUD approval. And so if you sell that land off, it's no longer part of the PUD. So conservation easement may be a better vehicle.
Although once it's constructed.
It's open space, period. It can't be developed.
It's not, it's one or the other, but I just worry about that's a legal piece that needs to be worked out, right? But the intent is the same.
Follow up briefly though, can you just let me know how many acres actually are we talking about in that piece?
He would know.
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
I'm just the pretty picture.
If you give me 2 minutes, I can figure out roughly what it is, but
I forget. We'll give you a couple minutes.
yeah.
What was your question, Commissioner Coteau?
About how many acres?
Is the 300 feet? How many acres is what?
Of open space are they designated?
How much open space is
I think it's 56.
Are you talking about the total open space for the whole development?
Well, how much open space are you saying you would put in that kind of protection? That's what I'm really asking for.
Oh, okay.
Which might not be the total for the development, that's why.
Okay, and it wouldn't be because there's open space other places?
Right, there are detention
Yeah.
ponds, there,
I don't know if we have an acreage where you just took the radius to the property line and said that's what it is, because I think our intent was if we're gonna do this, all the open space that's to the south, it would make, come up with a cohesive block of land, and it's probably, I would imagine the land that's going to be dedicated, conserved, whatever you want, but it will be larger than simply the Blue Heron Rookery. area. And then there's just some complications. We have a detention basin that it has to be located in a certain place, so that we need maintenance easements, and that's why I don't have a straight answer. But Matt's looking for the acreage amount. I don't have that handy.
You have a couple more. Yeah, go ahead. Finish, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Hyde.
So I appreciate your willingness to respect the heron breeding season around that, you know, and not doing construction in that rookery, that buffer area on the rear of those units. I am just a trifle concerned about the dates, because even though MNFI gives that July 31st date, I've talked to a bunch of ornithologists and birders, and what they say is, you know, birds don't follow the calendar. If there's a bad spring and the nesting season is pushed a little later, the birds may take just a little bit longer. So I guess my question is, would you be willing to consider, and I understand time is money, would you be willing to consider August 15th as the date after which you would start construction, so that you wouldn't start anything until August 15th, and or in terms of the noise, you know, the chainsaws, the land moving equipment, all of those noisy things that could be disturbing if birds were still resident? And or would you be willing to have a consultation with the supervisor before you start construction, because we are putting together a group of volunteers and staff who will be monitoring the birds, and who can basically say, oh yes, the young birds are out of the way. Because I'm thinking you have done all this effort to protect this rookery, and if it's just a matter of waiting another week or two to make sure those baby birds are safe and sound, that would be wonderful. Again, I understand time is Monday.
That would extend it from the end of July until middle of August?
Until August 15th.
I don't want to appear like I'm not trying to answer the question. I'd like to actually come back to you with an answer on that. I'm not immediately opposed to that at all. We need to find out, you know, the part of the problem here is we have a construction season with weather limitations. If we can start on August 15th and build that, and then I'm fine with that. But I'd hate to say yes to something. I'm open to it. I just would need some more information from the construction, because at a certain point it gets too cold for us to actually do stuff. But I can't imagine you're asking for a 2-week window. I would imagine my answer coming back to you is yes, no problem. But if you don't mind to give me, I can talk to people over the next couple days and email Laura or Doug or the supervisor. I'm open to it, I just gotta check. But I can't imagine 2 weeks is gonna cause that much of a problem.
And then
Sure.
final one question, unrelated to the heron rookery, but related to the fact that you are near a nature area. In your landscaping plan, in most cases, you are using cultivars of native species, but there are a couple of species that you've mentioned on pages L8 and L10, and maybe elsewhere. I wasn't sure I got them all, where you're using a couple of known invasives, and those are Euonymus fortunii and Lirio muscari.
It's his fault.
So those two species are known to be invasive. Now, if you were in the middle of an urban area, that wouldn't be a problem, right? Because they're not going to invade anywhere. But given that you are in such close proximity to our nature reserve, my question is, can you replace those? Obviously, we prefer native species, but if not native, at least something that's not a known invasive.
I don't see why that would be a problem. If you can provide that list to Doug or Laura or someone at the township to get over to me, unless there's some reason that I'm not aware of that would prohibit that, which I don't know of one. Do you know of one?
I don't know of any reason. We'll ask our landscape designer, but should be no issue at all.
I don't think it'll be a problem.
It's about 20, real rough numbers, 25 acres to 30 acres. We'll get you an exact number following this meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all my questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Hyde, you had a couple more?
Well, to follow up on what Commissioner Courteau was talking about, and you were responding to, about the conservation area would not necessarily just be that arc. To follow up on what Commissioner Courteau was saying, the interns are doing additional work to monitor the birds, and we're hoping that they will actually be expanding in area. So so that would not necessarily be the extent. So to maximize what you have in the south would be a good idea, just anticipating that the birds are going to be nesting even closer.
I wish we could get a
Not
plan
saying
out.
we're gonna increase that radius and push it north.
Right, you're saying having a larger land area, I don't see us having any problem with that. If we had a site plan and we could draw a line from where the very back of our development is, I would anticipate that the open space that we're going to dedicate, give it conservation, whatever it would be, whatever that, would cover all of the open space to the south. I would imagine that the sidewalk is probably, or the pathway is still bisecting through that, is that correct? Yeah, I don't know how to do that. Is there any way of getting the site? Laura, can you put the site plan up on the screen? We have no, okay. Okay.
Well,
I have no access to the internet.
That's unstable.
Mr. Hyde, is it okay if I approach?
Sure. And I'd actually been looking at it, that's why I was.
So if this radius is the 300.
Right.
I would imagine that we're gonna.
Talk about this whole.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be from that yellow line and then probably come up and around there.
I was just going to encourage you to, all the open areas
Yeah.
back there.
Yep,
Yeah.
agreed.
Now, that's, again, you're using the lawyers as the intermediaries to confer.
They're trying to figure out tax, you don't care, it's tax stuff that they're trying to figure out internally and, how they do a donation and what the appropriate.
So I would just suggest that you consider all the open area back here as being.
We are, I can guarantee you we are.
Mr. Stolgren, I'm sorry, can you just show me on this?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the laptop,
It doesn't do me any good.
I'm a Mac guy, so I'm gonna take hers instead.
You going to PC?
So this would be the furthest extent of, if you follow that dotted line at the top, right? And the path obviously is coming through the whole. So I'm anticipating our line for open space would be along the.
It's gonna be up to.
Yeah, so, no, I think it will go north of the trail. I don't know why we wouldn't include this area in here. We'll have to have a maintenance agreement for the basin, but that's not a big deal. So I would imagine the open space line of conveyance would be kind of following the finger. Like that, subject to some kind of maintenance.
While we've got that up, I have a question. I mean, there'll be some times when you want that pathway to be closed. And so I'm wondering if there could be a connection, from somewhere in this area back into the development. Because if somebody comes down here, it's February X to August X, the pathway is closed.
We could talk about it. The problem is that there were a lot of discussions about whether we all of a sudden wanted to start moving people walking on a path over onto private roads, and then you have everybody living in the community.
Yeah.
But I'm open to that discussion whenever we get to that level of detail. It's a reasonable request.
It just seems to me that, somebody, the path is closed.
Where are they gonna
You
go?
obviously can go all the way back, but it also gives even within the community, a secondary access to that walking path.
I'm not opposed to it. It becomes a question of, when all of a sudden you're getting 100 phone calls from people saying there's strangers walking on the street, so I think that's a good question. It's a reasonable question. We just need to kind of
think it through.
Well, would there be like a condominium, an association agreement? I don't know what you're gonna call it, but is there an agreement for your residents that they will all be part of because of the maintenance of the.
It's a rental community, so there won't be an association. You'd just be dealing with.
So the maintenance of the, I don't know what to call it.
Of the basin?
Yes.
The maintenance of the basin will be essentially an agreement between us and the township in terms of, it's your property now, or we've given you an easement or a conservation, but we're allowed to go in and maintain the basin.
So that wouldn't be the residents are responsible?
No, she's talking about.
I know, I heard.
Yeah, okay, yeah, she's talking about how
Yeah, if this path is closed at some point and people are coming in one direction or the other, and let's just say the pathway was closed here or here, how would they know, how would they get out? And whether we want to have some kind of secondary route for them to get in and out.
Okay.
Make sense? Thank you, Matt.
Next time.
You gonna charge me for that?
Anything else from, that was nice for right now. All right.
Well, I
You
did ask
were
one
following
question.
up more? Okay.
There's a change. It's very true that most of the requests are comparable to the old ones. But you had seniors that were a large portion of the population that would be residing here. And you have walking sidewalks, you have walking paths. Now you're going to be having younger people that are going to be in the apartments. There's going to have families in there. There's going to be children. Are there playgrounds planned for this? Are there areas where they can be out and have children recreation?
There is, well, first off, the building, the 4th-story apartments really, while are targeted towards a mix of audiences, predominantly not families. It's going to be, we would expect it's going to be mostly seniors. They will have their own amenities. I don't expect those in particular to be targeted towards children. There is a clubhouse and open space and play area. If you look right next to the clubhouse, it says rec areas. I don't know. Here, hold on.
Similar to the previous plan.
And what do you have planned for that area?
Yes. Yeah, we have, Matt, do you remember?
There's nothing specifically planned for those areas, just open rec fields per direction we received in the previous plan, but.
If you want us to look at that, we can.
Well, I'm looking at this as definitely, you're going to be shifting the age down by what you're shifting in terms of targets.
Okay.
So perhaps you need to consider there will be
Okay.
quite a few.
Not opposed to that at all, Mr. Hyde. We were following the direction last time around that they wanted open areas, but if you want us to look at putting playground equipment in there.
Well, I'm looking at something for the kids to do, or whatever.
And we did.
Okay.
It will be it'll be a community here. This is going to be compact.
I think
We don't have too many of those in
backed
Scio
off.
Township. It would be nice if it could
Sure.
contain something for everybody.
Not a problem. We will look at that and obviously talk to our landscape architect and the various sub guys that he has for
I don't know if
playground.
you guys had any thoughts on that. I didn't.
Yeah, that was one of my
Okay, good. I didn't
comments
want to
too.
be the only
Yeah.
one pushing
And
for
you
that.
might want to do, I mean, it may be a range in age of,
Right.
Okay.
you know, I mean, with the clubhouse, you could even do sand volleyball or, you know, and then do something for, you know, a younger group or something like that.
For whatever reason, I don't really remember, there was an emphasis from the previous planning commission and board about having open areas
Open
and
space
yes,
for the kids
so
to do whatever.
if you want us to take a more programmatic approach to that in terms of, that's fine.
I really wanted to hear what you had to say about it, what your plans were.
Well, we had been directed open space, play areas, big fields, trying to remember where that came from. I think it came from the previous supervisor. But no, we're open to that and we'll take a look at that starting tomorrow morning and, you know, and think that one through so that when we're back in front of you, we have something for you to look at.
Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, yeah, Commissioner Moore.
I just wanted to add, in your presentation, you mentioned that you were de-emphasizing the senior facility for a broader definition of residents in that facility.
Yeah.
Because of the project with Heritage Woods.
Well, we had, when the original plan was approved, we had not committed to any level of care for the seniors. It was one of the questions of whether we wanted to go down the road of it being, it's referred to here as a senior care facility, but whether it was independent living apartments or whether it was assisted living, we really hadn't decided yet. When we heard about the assisted living facility, I had a number of conversations with the township about it. And we thought it was better, since you already have senior housing coming in across the street essentially, that we would provide something a little more flexible. So these are gonna be elevator buildings, so if you're a senior and you don't want steps, and you don't want a ranch, and you want more of a, call it an urban, communal living, thing with an elevator building, those units will be available to you. So a senior who wanted to live in this community would have their choice of having a stacked flat unit that's on the first floor where there's no stairs. They would have the ability to rent a ranch unit, which are the ones to the south, which are all first floor units. Or if they were interested in a more urban communal living experience, the elevator building would provide that. And everybody's different. Some people want more space, they want to be farther away. Other people like the idea of having neighbors and getting to know them and having a pool immediately right downstairs and a workout room in their building. So it's to try and round, as I've been with you guys for, 3 years, 4 years it feels like doing this. There's been a real interest in enriching the community with a diversity of housing. That was repeated to me over and over again. So we were trying to come up with something that was not being delivered in Scio Township today. Since there's already an assisted living plan, we figured, okay, what can we bring to the township that would be a nice blend to fill in some of the niches where that housing doesn't exist?
So what I'm concerned about is, and maybe Chairperson Culbertson would be able to speak to this a little bit more, is that it sounds like you're reducing the age requirement, meaning broadening the ability of different people to move into the facility, the 4-story facility. It's my understanding that the point of the facility was to have access for seniors.
That's true.
Even though Heritage Woods has been
Right. We are
on the
not
block
going,
for a number of years.
we are not going to restrict, we are not planning on restricting the tenants in that building.
And why did you say that? I mean, why are you doing that?
We did that because we felt that there are plenty of seniors, and we see it in the current housing market today, where there's seniors that don't need any care, that are looking for units that are attractive for their age group, so there's no stairs. And what we find is we were able to, we see there's a lot of demand for these ranches, which is what we have in the rear of the project. So we thought this was a nice blend of bringing ranches where someone, if they want to live in a building like that, they get a different type of living experience living in that building than versus living in a ranch.
So this does not necessarily have anything to do with you, but I guess I'm getting mixed messages. I thought the priority was for seniors. This, like I say, it's not to review, this is more of a comment about the project and specifically about the senior facility. I'm getting mixed messages because I thought that was an important policy of the township, and it didn't, I didn't get the impression that it was based on, we already got one with Heritage Woods. So, but that, again, that's a comment, not necessarily directly at you, sir.
Mr. Chang?
Just a couple of points. First, I want to commend you. I am happy to see that you've increased the open space, I think you said by 2.2 acres, and saved 157 trees in exchange for, whether we debate whether you're going up to 4 stories and that's 6 feet. I know it's the midpoint of the roof, how we measure it, so I'm okay with that exchange. What I would like to request, though, is, since it's no longer a self-storage facility, and did I read the old staff report correctly that you were proposing 4 electric vehicle charging stations on site in the previous PUD?
That is what was agreed to in the original plan and as part of the signed development agreement with the township, yes.
So is it open for any type of negotiation, since it's no longer, say, a self-storage facility, where I wouldn't think, now that you're adding more residents, or at least you're going to a 92-unit apartment building along with, I think you said 548 units. Is it something that we could discuss to at least to get more than 4? I mean, sure. I'm surprised we went for 4, but this is our chance to revisit it. I mean, right now is the time we're going for preliminary PUD. I'd love to see more, EV parking spaces, and what that number is. I would tell you, I'm looking at the parking counts now, and it says that if you're required to have 1,193 required parking spaces. That's accurate. In the city of Ann Arbor, it's required that you do 10%. So that'd be over it's 119 spaces. I'm not going to go down that road to go from 4 to 119, but I would like to go to more than 4, and less than 119. Maybe we can have that discussion now, or is it more appropriate at the final?
I'm not sure, I guess that might be a Laura
And I know
question.
it's part of the development
Yeah,
agreement, but
yeah, I think, I'm just thinking, and this is, we're also, we've got an environmental task force that's working and so forth, and I think it has become very apparent that more and more, and you're looking to the future, you want to be able to market these as well. So I would say we would like to see, somewhere way more than 4. We don't have to go to the 10% piece, but also make the flats with the garages sort of, that they have their EV charging ready. So it isn't something that people have to add to their units. I think that's a really important point.
And what type of EV charging units were you thinking of putting in?
We were actually really struggling, and we asked for the township help, and we were all struggling, trying to figure out what kind of charging stations and how to do it, and what the costs involved are. There's a wild fluctuation.
Right, so there's like 3 different levels. and
Yeah.
Obviously, the first level would take forever to get your battery charged, and the third level takes much less time.
We hadn't got that far. The development agreement establishes, and I forget the amount of money, but a certain amount of money for it, and then it depends on what level we're doing. Recognize here that for like the retail, these are not likely to be retail places where people, it's not like going to Great Lakes Crossing where someone's gonna plug their car in and be gone for 4 hours. They're quick in and out trips. So we were all we had lots of healthy discussion as to what was the appropriate number and whether they were really gonna be effective. But I'm happy to have that discussion. We've got obviously another amended development agreement to present to you, and we'll be back here again, and I'll be happy to talk to Doug and Laura and the supervisor, et cetera, about adjusting that number.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I think, I don't think we're asking for like the level 3, those are the $50,000 chargers but the level 1 and 2s, because most of them are residential.
Okay.
For sure. And did you have?
I just have one other question. In the staff report, it said that the proposed path was going to be built in phases. Why in phases and not, I guess, how many phases are a part of this development, and how much are you going to build in phase 1 of the path, and how much in phase 2, et cetera?
Good question. The reality is we have the right under the agreement to build the pathway in chunks as we go. The speed of the development in part will relate to how quickly construction of the apartments, et cetera. We really didn't want to build the whole path all together and then have construction come next door to it and destroy it. So there's some question as to what is the best way of doing it. I don't think we intend on building the entire path all at one time. Particularly right now, there's no place for the path to go to because there's no path to connect to. I think we're open and flexible to if the pathway off-site, if you will, to the south, is there's something to connect to, and the township says, hey, can you speed this up and build the path in 2 phases versus 1? We're open to do that. I think Mr. Lujan, at some point during the conversation, suggested that we trigger the pathway in phases along with the phases of development as we go. Whether that's the best way of going or not, I think ultimately is yet to be decided. So if you wanted to suggest a different way of doing it, we'd be open to that. Recognize that the path, and I wish I had a video, but the path that's going along the very east side is right on top of that construction. So to go ahead and just say, we'll build the whole path right now, it could get destroyed, during the construction, which is immediately adjacent to it. And in addition to it, I'm not sure if you really want to have the public walking through what's a nearby construction zone until we're done. Taking all those factors into account, we're open if you wanted to revisit that issue in the development agreement and change the phasing. I'm not sure what the best answer is as to what the best way of doing it is, but we'd be open to changing it if need be. It was kind of, to be frank with you, given that we didn't quite know how we were going to phase it and
the timing and everything, we kind of just all agreed that if we build phase one, then the path that's in phase one gets built. If we built phase two, I don't think it really is all that important to us whether we're doing it all at once or in pieces. It's more of how does that relate to construction? Do you want school kids on bikes riding through a construction zone? There's a lot of factors involved, but I'm happy to discuss it with you, and we're open to tweaking that if need be. It was really kind of something that we put in as a placeholder to kind of figure out later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. The concern is you only, complete phase one, and then for whatever reason, we've seen it that construction stops, and now we've got an incomplete path. And there's got to be something that I want triggered that if you do in fact only do phase one, then yes, you're going to have to complete the path at the very least, and then you'll come back in the future and do your other phase two or three. You just don't want to see just links.
Excuse me, I can't remember, Laura, do you remember when we did the original plan, I don't remember if there were any financial assurances tied into the pathway?
I don't remember.
But if there weren't, and it's a good question, we certainly can tie whatever financial assurances we're putting up to the completion of the path. And then you'll know it'll get built.
Yeah, some sort of bonding or something like
Yeah,
that could be
yeah.
an alternative strategy.
It probably, if we just include it as part of whatever the other financial assurances are, and we don't get released until the path is built. We're not going anywhere, we're building the path, it's just a question of how to work through that.
Question about the senior citizen issue. Are you setting aside, or do you have a limit in which you would set aside so many units for seniors?
We hadn't planned to.
So I'm
That's
just
a big
wondering,
change.
pardon me?
That's a big change from the previous.
Yeah, because the whole building was senior before. And I wonder if you would consider something like, because, you can call it senior/other residents, but in fact, if you rent to all other residents, it's really not, doesn't have a senior component. So I don't know how we meet that. How do we assure that there is a viable senior component to that 4-story facility?
I'm not sure either, but I'm open to discussing it and we can certainly, we're gonna have plenty of dialogue on all these issues between now and the final PUD. So if that's something you want us to talk about and see if we can come up with a solution for it, I'm open.
Well, I don't want to give lip service to it.
No, I'm not.
I'm not saying you are, I'm just
Right.
saying, if that is, that's been stated as one of our issues and our concerns, to have more senior opportunities for senior living, then the remake of this 4-story facility is something that we need to assure that it will be available for seniors.
Okay.
Yeah, those are my questions, thank you.
So I have a couple. One, we did do a site plan approval with the there's an adjacent property owner. And a part of that was collaborating with you on some sort of, because Baker Road comes in and, I think you had, I don't even know what element that was, sort of as an entry to Scio, right at the pathway. And there was gonna be some sort of collaboration with them. So it wasn't, because they need to do something as well. And, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to them or there's been any discussion.
Only discussion I've had was through their engineering firm about stormwater design and whether we could allow their stormwater flow. And the conversation I had with them was right around the time when we found out about the blue herons. And I just said, stop, not right now, we gotta deal with this. And then I haven't heard anything more.
All right. There was something, and maybe Carlisle Wortman can, kind of connect that. Because the other part was trying to do some sort of connection to that path that would also connect into sort of the retail portion.
Connection of which path?
The pathway, is that what we're calling them? The pathway, they were going to work with you on a possible connection to that pathway from their property And this is all news to you, right?
This is all news to me.
Okay,
All
so,
I know is they wanted us to see if we could handle their stormwater, and I just kind of punted and said, I really don't know if we can. I wouldn't rely on us right now. We're trying to deal with the herons.
blue herons.
Yeah, you can imagine the mess of a fully engineered site plan when you start making, I mean, Matt used to have a lot more hair. So,
yeah, maybe Carlisle Wortman can connect you guys, because there were, because that is an interesting thing. I do have to say, I want to commend you, because not many developers would have taken a fully approved site plan and gone back and done what you have done. So,
I appreciate it.
yeah, I mean, thank you very much.
try and do the right thing.
I also think that you have improved the development, especially the retail part, getting rid of the storage. I think that'll just make it a happier place to live. So I think that was a good change. And I do, kind of support Commissioner Moore, and if there is something that you can do in your marketing materials and, a set-asides or something like that for, and in seniors these days, some people say 55 and older, sometimes they're way older than that, my age.
We'll certainly bring that up for discussion. All of the comments that you've given us, we've taken notes. There's people behind me taking notes, and we will start seeing what we can come up with.
Yeah, I think the other thing, this is sort of kind of future-proofing a little bit, is I noticed, I wasn't sure because of, if you have a lot more parking or a little more parking than what's required, but taking a look at the parking piece, and I want to make sure that with the trash, that we also have room for recycling. Because I think, right now, there isn't as much recycling, especially commercially and in multifamily in the township, but that's something that we really want to, because if you don't have the room, right, it's really hard to.
I believe, and don't hold me to this, but my recollection is that we are over-parked in the sense that we've provided more parking spaces than what's required. And I know that the first time around, we spent a lot of time working out trash pickup and drop off and all that, so we can certainly look at any issues related thereto and recycling as well.
Yeah, I think, achieving a balance, so you have room in the planning to do that. Okay.
Is this going to be curbside trash pickup, or is it going to be collection in a central location? I forget how this.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's really weird because it's a mix, because multifamily isn't considered single family. I don't know what the duplexes, if they come under the township agreement or not, because they would have recycling, but the multifamily wouldn't. So I'm not even sure what.
I don't know, it's a
the
good
status
question.
of
I'll
that
find
would
out
be.
though. I really don't know.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be good to hone in on.
Okay.
And I know we're looking at composting too, but that's even just don't, put it out there, right?
That's what the wetlands are for.
I didn't say that.
And this is my only, and this is not a mandate of any kind. I'm saying this to all developments that come before us now, and that is, please take a look seriously at all electric development as much as possible. And there is a really good resource. Consumers Energy just did a really good guide for multifamily, net zero all electric developments. And
Is that something, there's an article that you can get to me?
I can do that, because it is, they went through case studies, and it is an economical
If you
option.
get that to Laura or Doug, someone's got my email address, and I would love to look at that.
Forward it to Carlisle Walkman, yep.
And that's for all electric, for multifamily, okay. Okay.
And solar ready is always appreciated. It's not a really good, there isn't a good solution right now for multifamily, but we're pushing it.
Okay.
So, okay, those were my items. Anything
I had
else?
a question for Laura.
Yeah,
You said there were 3 deviations. One was the signage. What were the other 2?
The building height, which we approved before, remember, he showed that there's really no difference, it's just in the definition of how we measure height. And then,
Floor area ratio.
the floor area ratio for the, south part portion of the development.
and I'll trade a little extra floor area ratio for trees and blueberries any day.
Open space.
Yeah. All right, so. Commissioners, we need to open up, you know what we've done? We haven't allowed public comment, so they've heard all the discussion.
Now they get to talk.
No, the public gets to talk, so if we have anyone, yeah.
I'll be right back.
So do we have anyone in the audience that would like to address the planning commission on Woodview? Seeing none, we'll turn to online.
Jonathan Greenberg, and allow him to speak.
Okay.
Hi, in this case, I'm only speaking for a 3-minute period and I won't even take that much time up. So I just wanted to say that over the last few years, as I've been watching these planning commission meetings and the Township Hall Board of Trustee meetings, we've seen a lot of different types of folks come through with proposals. There are developers who will work with a client to ensure they get some kind of agribusiness zoning so they can turn around and sell the property before they even build an agribusiness because they took a couple classes. And then there's other folks who, like Mr. Stolman here, are incredibly patient, incredibly knowledgeable, and will work with the township to arrive at a best case solution. And so I just want to say to Mr. Stolman and the group that this is an excellent presentation. Thank you very much for accommodating Scio Township's 3 or 4 revisions. I know it's never easy, but the residents of Scio Township do appreciate developers who are so flexible, willing to work with us, and also knowledgeable. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Next, I have Ryan Yeaple.
Ryan.
Yeaple. Ryan, you're allowed to speak.
Excellent. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Culbertson. Wanted to introduce myself. I am the neighbor directly to the west of this property. Mr. Stolman, Mr. Bush is aware. Jared Kime works for Atwell. He's our civil engineer. He can get in touch with me about what Commissioner Culbertson mentioned as far as the stormwater. We took care of that issue before, but as far as the other items you mentioned, great to see you guys were able to redesign the plan. I just want to make sure that we keep up the screening on the side closest to that apartment building. The planning commission had me screen that pretty well, but if you guys can do that as well, that'd be my only main concern. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good evening again. Yeah, I've been watching the Woodview plans for the last 3 years. I think this is the 3rd or 4th meeting that I have attended, and I've been really impressed with them. And I've been looking forward to when the development is finished. I know it's going to take some time. So I do have a question because I did also sit in at the Heritage, I think it's Heritage Woods, and it was brought up that, you know, that's an assisted living, I believe. And the developer had mentioned that by law, they have to have generators. So I hear in every meeting that we're pushing for electricity, everything's electric, which is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. However, 60% of electricity is made from coal. But putting that aside, what is the backup plan for power outages? I mean, I know in my area, we've had many power outages since I've moved here 10, 11 years. In fact, in the middle of winter a few years ago, I went 6 days without having electricity. The only thing that saved me was I had a gas stove and a gas fireplace. And I turned the water on just a little bit to keep it from freezing. So Woodview, I think, I know that I heard that there's going to be some senior living, maybe not assisted living, but for seniors. What are we going to do for our seniors and, in young families if the power goes out and everything's electricity? So this isn't directed at the developer. I'm talking to, the planning commission, because this comes up quite a bit. So it's just, maybe this has been addressed before and I just haven't heard it, but I'm curious. Thank you.
Jonathan Greenberg has his hand up. I don't know if I didn't take his hand down, so I'm going to allow him to talk a second time. Oh, no, he removed his hand. There's no one else raising their hand. All right.
Anyone, is there anyone else?
No one else.
We're good? Anyone else here? All right, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing for Woodview. Moved by Commissioner Hyde, support Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The public hearing is closed at 9:10. All right, we'll move on to our deliberations.
I do have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Hyde.
Based on what the last public speaker had to say, are those the kind of things, the power backup, are those the kind of things that would go in the final PUD proposal, or at what time are they to be addressed?
Yeah, so typically, locations of transformers, generators, whatever, is in
Utilities.
the final, the utilities and all of that in the final.
Okay.
meeting, yeah. And to address that, there is not a good, there are batteries, but the backup solution right now is either natural gas or propane, or diesel. We won't say anything about that.
Is there natural gas along Jackson?
What's that?
Is there natural gas along Jackson?
So there isn't a good backup for large buildings at this point in time. There really is. All right. Other deliberative thoughts?
I think they've done a wonderful job of accommodating additional requests after approval. That's just amazing. So thank you very much.
I second that.
Thank you.
So I take it that Planning Commission would entertain a motion for the preliminary PUD plan amendment? Yes.
So what I've heard is that we're supportive on many fronts, and I've heard a great willingness to continue the conversation. So my question is the logistical one of if we were to move forward, how to frame an agreement that we would continue the discussion so that the planning, the ultimate development agreement will reflect some of these considerations. So that's my question, and then part of the specific of that is around the senior housing piece, what the mechanism would be to think about a set aside or think about marketing or something so that we're addressing that. So I was trying to formulate that in the motion, and the closest that I came up with, and I think this is still too vague, is that the development agreement would be modified to reflect some of the concerns discussed in the Planning Commission meeting today. But I'm asking the rest of you for help in making that
Yeah.
more specific.
Yeah, I think one of the things is the, continue to discuss the conservation of the southern open space. You know, what that mechanism is.
Yep.
Also then, addressing, some sort of designation for senior housing. Increasing the EV charging and EV ready, numbers of spaces. Yeah, keep going.
To work with the neighbors to the west on connections to their path into the pathway that is easement that's on the west side. Consider net zero electric development.
What was the last one?
Net zero electric in their development. I'm not quite sure how to put that. That's how I wrote it down. I don't know if you mentioned seniors already? Okay,
Yeah, I think it's net zero ready electric development.
net zero ready.
Playground equipment?
Yeah.
Where is that?
Play area for a range of ages.
Study trash, recycling, and garbage pickup?
Consider dedicating a certain percentage of the units to seniors, perhaps just in their marketing, but at least show some goal. I don't know how you want to do it.
We gotta figure that out.
Yep.
Yeah, how to target, yeah.
Propose phasing in.
Oh, phasing of the pathway.
Yeah,
Proposing a phasing of the pathway different than what they currently have.
pathway or a bonding or something like that, so, yeah.
You did mention recycling, is that what, did you already say that?
Yeah.
And having a power backup plan in the final PUD proposal,
At least for the apartment,
right?
yeah.
The apartment or?
Well, that, because of this, if that's gonna be seniors and you're depending on an elevator and you don't have a backup for at least the elevator.
I believe there's my recollection is I remember there being discussions of there being a generator for that building. But I don't see how it's anything other than gas.
It would have to be gas, yeah, you wouldn't want diesel, and, I mean, propane is another mess, so, yeah. But, yeah, that's limited anyway, and the restaurants typically will balk if they.
I'll have answers to all these questions, obviously.
What about wiring for the individual units for generators? I don't know if you.
For
solar.
For the townhouses? No, I didn't mean for that solar, I meant for power.
You know, I just have to make this comment.
Yes.
It was very interesting. We were almost ready to do an all electric development. And they said, nope, we gotta have gas for the generators. And out of 17 units, 1 unit purchased the generator. One. It was really interesting. They were, villas type things, but, it was sort of interesting. Yeah, well, anyway, but, you don't wanna,
Okay.
but it's something, we're in that transition period, which is a difficult one. Yeah. So, but for sure, the elevator building needs it, especially if it's gonna be.
My recollection is that there was some discussion, but usually when that's something that's outside of my normal.
Okay, any other points that anyone else has?
I don't have any.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I have 11.
How'd you, I guess
I have
maybe I
9.
can find one.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so the mechanism for conservation of the southern open space, a target for senior housing, especially in the 4-story building, increase the EV charging and EV ready, collaboration with the West neighbor for connection, and what is that thing called, the focal point at Baker
The welcome to
Community
Scio.
element, or what is it called?
Community feature.
Community feature, that's it.
We actually, so I'll throw something back at you. We would like to know if, whenever you can get us some input, the original proposal to you guys was we would build a welcome to Scio sign on the corner that would match the one that's on Zeeb and Jackson. And I remember sitting in this township hall, and that issue came up, and somebody jumped up and said, no, that was designed by Meyer, we don't want that design. And so I literally had a call last week where someone asked, well, are we building it? Because we have to go design it and then price it out and everything else. And I was like, I really don't know. So we wanted to propose at some point to doing something that fit more into the architecture of what we're designing. We're open to it. If you said build the old sign, we'll build the old sign. If you want something new and something different, we're open to that. We're actually suggesting that. So at some point, I'm sure Laura, Doug, and I will have a discussion about it, but.
And I don't think anybody here by expression is married to any kind of welcome to Scio sign. It's
We
more-
already have 2 different welcome to Scio signs.
I think it's more of a, some sort of community amenity that it's the gateway to this little pathway.
Exactly.
Et cetera. So
Exactly.
something
If you
that's
want
more-
it to match the one in front of the Meyer, we can do that. If you want something different, we're open to it. We prefer that, to be honest, but, whatever you guys decide, we'll go along with that.
So we had that community element, consider the net zero ready electric development, play area for range of age groups, make sure there's adequate space for trash and recycling, phasing of the, an agreement about phasing of the pathway or bonding, so we make sure we ultimately get the pathway no matter what, and then the power backup, especially for the 4-story.
Oh, I see why I have 11.
Could I just,
Yeah.
One
very
and two
small, for the
letters.
consider net zero ready and or solar ready, because you also had mentioned that.
Well, net zero ready applies to solar.
Implies the solar, but
Yeah.
I didn't know whether we
Yeah.
should specify.
What was that last?
It was, net zero ready implies solar ready
Yeah.
kind of development, yeah. So you think about orientation, structure.
You had 9, and I had 11.
So what are
And
the
the
other
other 2 were the planners and the engineers' concerns.
Right.
Hold it, we had one other one, and you wanted me to consider the additional 2 weeks for the.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you so much.
yeah.
I didn't, I was
Conservation of the
thinking-
open space and the
And
2 week
scheduling
schedule
of construction activity in the Great Lujan
to August 15th.
to August 15th.
Okay, we'll add
Now,
that to
is
the
that just
conservation of the
for
open
the
space.
southern
Right.
construction area? So that really is just
Those yours.
the drainage, or what is that called? The
The
basin?
basin.
That's it.
The basin.
Everything else is,
The rear of.
And the very rear,
Something
yeah,
you
you're
can
gonna,
sell.
you're gonna be doing construction that goes over that 300 feet, with grading and things, I think.
Very yeah, but and that's really the question that she asked about delaying the 2 weeks really has to do with, it's one season to get that basin built, and I would just want to make sure that we have time to start and to finish it, because what do we do if we don't have time to finish it?
Yeah, and protect it adequately.
Yep.
Otherwise, you'll be cleaning it out before you.
She'll be yelling at me when I come in with another project going, what did you do? So I hear you loud and clear. We'll figure that out. I gotta get with my construction manager.
Okay, so I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
I'd be willing.
Motion maker, aye.
Okay, on Heritage Woods preliminary PUD, OA 22001, TSP 22004. As amended, based on the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the Planning Commission finds the Woodview Commons amended preliminary PUD plan received by the township meets the qualifications for consideration as a PUD as outlined in section 36-245C of the zoning ordinance. Based on the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the Planning Commission finds Woodview Commons amended preliminary PUD plan meets the findings pursuant to the sections 36-249D of the zoning ordinance and recommends approval to the township board for action on the preliminary plan. In making this determination, the following additional conditions shall apply. One, the concerns noted in the planner's review dated 2022. Concerns noted in the engineer's review dated 3/15/2022. And the rest of these, which I'm gonna have to get the wording. So have you been taking notes too?
I have, and I think we need to go back and add, including, at the end of that, including the deviations of the 4-story apartment building, the added sign for the apartment building.
List the deviations.
Yeah, list the deviations, and the
sign.
third one was
The sign.
well, we have the sign, the 4-story height, and
The
Floor area.
the floor
calculation.
area ratio increase.
Okay,
Yeah.
I assumed that was in the letter, so,
Yeah, we just have to approve those specifically.
thank you.
All right, now the 9.
Right, the third one was, so the concerns of the planner and engineers, and then number 3 was, now mine are out of order from yours, consider additional charging stations above the 4 original approved number. 4, to work,
And EV ready, are they the duplexes? What are they?
Ranches?
The ranches, yeah. EV ready for the ranches, because they have garages.
okay, including EV ready for the ranches.
Okay.
To work with Scio on either conservation easement, or donation, or sale of the southern open space in its totality. 5, work on shortening up the phasing on the path construction. 6, consider adding playground proposal in the final PUD. 7, work with a neighbor to connect their walking path to the pathway easement on your west border. 8, dedicate a certain percent of the units to seniors. As I said, perhaps only in the marketing plan. Just state what your goals are.
Well,
Go ahead.
I mean, those were suggestions, but that was not what I was getting at.
What were you getting at?
I was getting at a set aside for so many units for seniors. I
So,
mean, some other, I think.
So consider,
Jen was suggesting maybe.
yeah, I mean, as far as you can go with dedicating.
I understand what you're looking for.
dedicating it to the seniors. Okay, so I'll strike my marketing effort. Number 9, to consider, not consider, add recycling plans to your garbage collection planning as part of this. Make sure you set aside enough area. 10, consider net zero ready electric in your development. Number 11, come up with a proposal for your power backup in your final PUD submission, at least for the high rise,
4-story.
the 4-story building. 12, consider extending the date that you will not be building in the southern area, especially for the basin construction, to August 15th, what was it? Any others?
Just for the pathways one, to
Play
consider
area.
bonding as well as phasing. That was what we talked, for pathways to consider bonding to ensure that the pathway would be constructed.
Okay.
That's within your, I lost track, your numbering was different than mine, so I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in the number where you had the pathways, the phasing of the pathways, to also consider bonding to ensure the pathway construction would be completed.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. I did not-
And the only other one was the play area.
No, I think I got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had the play area, but,
Yeah.
and just add for all age, for a range of age.
Yes, for a range of ages.
Okay.
That's a lot. So thanks for working with us.
Oh, absolutely.
So is there support for? Support. Support from Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Okay, Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Corto,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Thank you so
For
much.
your perseverance.
Well, we appreciate your time and effort working on this. It's really been, and I said it at the end, there are times when things are adversarial and they don't work well for everybody. And there are times when things are cooperative and they really, 1 + 1 does equal 3. And we really think we're headed in the latter direction. And this has been a great opportunity for us to be able to come out and improve on what we had proposed. And we're happy to be here, and we'll keep on refining the plan and making it better. So really appreciate your time and effort on this. And if there's any other things, Laura knows how to reach us, so please let me know. We'll get to work on all these tomorrow morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank your team too. All right. Moving on to new business, site plan 21023, Jackson Street Association PUD amendment for sign.
Did everybody get a copy? I ended up with 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have an extra.
Okay,
Can I
so
get
did
it?
I.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I think I got it. Yeah, thank you.
There's 2 motions for this one.
I don't have the
Oh, yeah, because it has to be declared a minor amendment, and then it has to be declared,
I didn't see that they were.
yeah.
You have 2 of these.
Oh, did I get the motion?
Yeah, well, there are 2 motions, because
I see.
you have to declare it a minor or major amendment, and then the actual.
Thank you again.
Thanks, no problem. So, this is a site plan, or a amendment, so we'll go ahead and start with the applicant, present, and then we'll move to
Yes,
our planning consultant.
we were requesting a PUD for a new sign on Jackson Road. I think you have all the information that I provided in the submittal. The pictures of the sign, where it's gonna be located at. And what we were asking for is that the ordinance reads, it's at 3660 Jackson Road. What we asked for is allowing us a 10-foot setback from the sidewalk instead of 15 feet. And that's the reason why I'm here today, to see if that's all possible.
Could you just sort of talk a little bit about the reason why the 10-foot rather than the 15-foot?
Well, I submitted, there's like 15 other signs that are a lot closer than the ordinance allowance of 15 feet. And just for better visibility aspects going on north, and there's a 20-foot setback from Jackson Road. Then there's 5 feet for the sidewalk and another 10 feet if I'm allowed to put the sign 10 feet back. So the sign would be, basically 20, 30 feet from the road. And for visibility factors, it would be nice to have it. I'm only asking for 5 feet closer to the sidewalk than what is in the ordinance for the 15-foot setback.
So visibility, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yeah, for
What is
traffic.
your name, sir?
Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry, it's Mark Shalou with Shalou Designs. I live here in the township, and I've been building signs in this area for over almost 35 years. So this is something that, in my belief, in the client's belief, that and just the traffic going down Jackson Road at 45, 50 miles an hour, there wouldn't be really, the further it goes back, the more distracted they're gonna be, if it's closer to the road. And there's a sign next door to this project at Carlisle, and he's basically 14 inches from the sidewalk. So we're just asking somewhere, we're not asking for 14 inches, we're asking for 10 feet instead of 15 feet from the sidewalk. And in the packet, there was 15 different, there's about 8 or 9 different signs on Jackson Road that show a less setback than what I'm asking for.
I had one clarifying question in the main sign design, it just has wheels in motion, and in one of the sketches, it had wheels in motion and sun and snow.
Correct.
Which is it?
Well, it's just gonna be, wheels in motion, and the reason why, there's sun and snow, then there's move. Well, move was awarded a permit to be, it's allowed, there's 2 signs that are allowed, but in this case, it was an add-on to the rear area by the theater, where the theater was, and they were allowed to, somehow, it was missed by Scio Township and they gave them a sign-off on the ordinance. Well, the signs should never have been there to begin with. But that's, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I work here and I enjoy working here. So the move sign in the front on Jackson Road never should have been there. So what we did, we went through the Board of Appeals to see if they would allow us another sign in that 60-foot space. Well, the wheels, sun and snow is 60 square feet, and they said the only option would be to reduce that sign to 30 square feet. Then we possibly could have it, but the real issue is move is there, so there's really not enough room to have another sign. There could be, but what's happening in the winter months, it's sun and snow, and in the summer months, they offset their business. They're using Wheels in Motion bicycle shop there. So it's a dual functional business. And so the other way around it is to put a monument sign and not go in, taking one sign down, making it smaller, making 2 signs, so we make one at around the same cost as one sign.
With 2 businesses on it.
There would be 2 businesses on it, yes, that's correct, but not on the sign. The sun and snow is on the wall, and on the monument sign, it will just be Wheels in Motion.
So just a single business?
Single business, yes. Yeah, we'll have the address.
So they won't have sun and snow on the monument?
No.
They're only asking to put Wheels in Motion on the monument. Sun and snow is still gonna be on the wall. Move is still gonna be on the wall.
So it's a way of adding signage for Wheels in Motion.
Right, you're adding a 3rd sign. This is a monument.
So I'm a bit, why is you don't think people can see the signage on the building?
Well, the problem,
They can't get another sign.
There isn't enough, there's only a certain amount of signage allowance on a building, and they've maxed that, actually exceeded that.
Okay, well, my question is, can people see it from the road?
Which?
What's already existing on the building?
There is no sign for Wheels in Motion on the
They
building.
can see the other signs from the road, the ones on the building.
Oh, I guess I thought Wheels in Motion was move, but
No, it's not. It's a different business. Yeah.
sounds like the same kind of moving, Wheels in Motion.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I mean, it's, to clarify, what exactly is happening is important. Okay. Yes.
Can I just follow up with a clarifying question? Because in the Carlisle Wortman report, and maybe Ms. Krebs, you can also help me understand this, it was pointed out that the requested placement actually then has the tree interfering more with the sign. So I'm just trying to understand based on your sketch and in the next one, these are pages that for people with the packet, pages 196 and 197 of the packet. I'm trying to understand the relationship of the tree, the sign, and the sidewalk. First of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for your wonderful compilation of signs and distances. That was really enlightening and helpful in trying to assess this. Obviously, we're trying to balance traffic safety, visibility, pedestrian safety, and with the understanding that people need to be able to see the sign while they're driving in a reasonable way. So I'm just trying to put this all together and understand the placement of the sign versus the tree and why that was called out in the Carlisle-Wartman report and what you might have to say in response.
Well, I just first, I have a number of things I'd like to say, but I will respond to you, to your question first. Just from the appearance of how the drawing was scaled, it appeared to me that it may be visibly able to be seen from both directions better and a little further back because of the size and location of that tree. And that's if the drawing is to scale and it's really showing the location in relation to that tree. So of course the sign is probably lower than the tree, so maybe that's a difference too. So just something to think about as we looked at the location.
Have you considered
Can we hear
standing
from
at that
the-
site,
can we hear
whether the
from-
sight lines are such that this is the optimal visible location?
Yes, this is the reason why the tree is quite tall, and it's, there's probably 6 feet or so, where there's no leaves at all. So this position will allow us, you see it coming east and going west as well.
I thought that would be to your question.
So I didn't know if Laura was gonna make a presentation,
Yeah, she's gonna make her comments, yeah.
because I have a question for her, but I wanted to.
Yeah, go ahead and you can go ahead and ask a question, then you can cover it, yeah.
What is the purpose of the 15-foot setback?
It's for visibility at driveways. We require that setback to be not only from the sidewalk or the property line, the right-of-way, and the driveway, so that it provides the signs to be set back so that vehicles and pedestrians aren't being conflicted. This particular sign is not adjacent to a driveway, so that 15 feet from a driveway doesn't apply. And as Mr. Chalu said, there are a number of signs along Jackson Road that do not meet the 15-foot requirement. That's for a number of reasons, and that's happened through over a number of years. So we know that there are a lot of buildings and signs that were located on the property prior to the expansion of Jackson Boulevard, and so some of those nonconformities have come into play. We have also granted a handful of variances since my time at the ZBA over the last 5 or 6 years regarding placement of signs closer to Jackson Road, just because of the Jackson Road Boulevard and the small setback that's left and the amount of area that's available for a sign. As Mr. Chalu stated, this is an existing PUD. At the time the PUD was approved, they were allowed 1 sign, and that really was for the cinema that was behind. Since that time, in 2006, I believe it was, 2016 maybe, Carlisle actually installed their sign and then came to us to ask for the PUD amendment. So that's part of the reason why it's so close to the sidewalk, was that it was already installed.
And we agreed to that after?
Well, it was installed, and so yes, at that time, the planning commission, I think they had the same note that you have in your recommendation, that short of the sign being moved moved back, we asked for justification. The applicant provided that, and then it was allowed to remain at that location. The sign is proposed, besides meeting that 15-foot setback, does meet the signage area and height requirements of the ordinance. As Jan alluded to, the applicant for Wheels in Motion, they did come before the planning commission for a wall sign, or for the zoning board of appeals for a wall sign variance. They were disapproved, they were denied their request. So this really is the only option that they have to provide any sort of signage for their business along Jackson Road.
So I have a comment, if that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, we can get into, any clarification questions first, and then we'll get into comments.
It is a clarification, but I'll ask it, and you can give your presentation, and as long as it's in there, I don't need to wait, but the 10-foot setback, they show it from the driveway, but it's stated in the Carlisle-Wortman letter that it's 10 foot from property line. Is this the property line at the sidewalk yet?
The sidewalk is a property.
Because I couldn't see that on any drawing.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I verified that, yes.
Okay, did you have anything else?
That was really all. That was my presentation. Hopefully that answered some questions.
I have a process question. Could we say something from like 10 to 15 feet? So they maximize visibility, and I'm just a little bit worried about, once you get there and you mock it up, exactly the best visibility of it. So could we be flexible in our dimensions?
Well, this is a recommendation to the board. Jackie's on the board. I don't know if they prefer a more, rigid recommendation, or if they're, they're going to look to you for that guidance as far as what the setback should be.
Because really, short of mocking it up, it's very difficult to figure out that visibility piece. I don't know if you went and basically
Yes,
mocked it
I've
up.
been by the site very many times and did drive-by studies, walking studies, in the visibility aspect of reading. The building sits back from the curb 87 feet. So this is one of the other reasons why we wanted to bring this monument sign into play. So they would have, if Wheels in Motion goes away 5 years, I'll be back in here doing something different to put on there. I know there's a maximum of 3 venues per sign, but it will stay as it is for probably at least 5 years. There would be a changeable face on it if we changed anything. The monument sign would be in place for as long as possible.
Just respond, I would say, in general, my impression is that the DOT appreciates the very clear guidance from the planning commission, but I believe that if you decide that flexibility is needed and wanted to give a very clearly defined range,
But I guess
As well, but it sounds
the
like
applicant has studied it and is confident that that's the best place.
I was going to say, they're requesting a specific number.
Yeah.
If we give them a range, I bet I know what they're going to put.
Yeah, okay.
So the first thing we're supposed to consider is
Whether it's a major or minor site plan amendment, and by definition.
So,
So there are criteria in the ordinance that you would consider, that are considered a major amendment, and this is not, that includes change in the concept of the development, change in use or character of the development, change in the type of dwelling unit, change in the number of dwelling units, change in non-residential floor area, lot coverage, or floor area ratio, change in the character or function of any street, change in land area set aside for common space or relocation of such areas, change in building height. Those are all considered major amendments. This is not a major amendment, in my opinion. Now, the zoning ordinance gives the planning commission the authority to determine whether it's a minor or major amendment. So that's why we need the first motion, that you determine it to be minor or major, and then the second motion regarding the allowance of the sign and the location.
so you want us to vote on the major minor first, and
Yes.
then whether or not we're going to agree to the sign?
Correct.
Right.
So does,
I
is
would
there?
like to speak about the whole project. I would like commissioners to be careful about approving the setback to 10 feet. I think 5 more feet is not a big problem. And I'm concerned about what if the cigar parlor wants a sign? You know, where do they get to put their sign? Or let's say there's room for development in the back of the plaza. What if more people want to come and put a sign in? And I have no idea how we approved the Carlisle signage post facto. I have no idea how we did that. It's the wrong message to developers and businesses. And what the heck do we have an ordinance for if we're not going to follow it? So we have been here about, you know, doing things piecemeal on projects. If the commissioners remember, we were here a couple weeks ago. A guy didn't want to pay for a sidewalk because that area of Jackson Road, west of Baker, had not been developed. He knew that another project, we gave a waiver of the sidewalk. And could come to find out he was more accurate. And as Mr. Lujan investigated it, he was right about what he was saying. But that's part of the reason why I asked about what the 15-foot setback was for. I think we need to be careful about piecemealing these kinds of decisions and have them come back and haunt us in various different ways. So I personally feel that the sign can meet the 15-foot requirement. Everybody wants what they want. And I just, we've got a difference of opinion. The applicant has said why they want some leeway on the 5 feet. We've got the consultant telling us that actually might be more visible if we go with the 15 feet, with the original 15 feet setback, the 5 more feet. I just think that in terms of policy and how we do business, it's important to be consistent, because what we open up ourselves to, unless there's some overriding reason, there's some safety reason, there's some big overriding reason not to do it. Because what we do is we open ourselves up to criticism, if not liability, for making piecemeal decisions like this. So I would not be in favor of approving this sign, reducing the 15-foot setback. I know from experience about the Lowe's sign. The Lowe's sign is just ridiculously unsafe. If you go out, you can't see anything. You have to go, it's a huge sign, but more importantly, it's as the applicant has pointed out, there are many, they're right on the sidewalk, and it's very, very difficult. So you have to edge out on the sidewalk to see better. So, but it's my understanding that happened because of the development of the widening of the Jackson Road corridor. And so we took up more.
I'm not sure about that one.
That one, okay.
But many
Well,
of the
I've been here for
signs are
14
that way.
years, 15 years in August, and Lowe's was here before me, so. But in any event, I just don't hear a good reason to not follow our ordinance, the 15-foot setback. So but that's just my piece. Thank you.
Before we kind of continue our deliberation, I think I'd be in favor of the motion about whether it's major or minor first, and then we can continue our deliberation on the actual content. So is there someone want to make a motion about it being a major or minor amendment? Commissioner Hyde.
Okay. This concerns the determination of major or minor amendment to the well, it's site plan 21023. Based on the information received from the applicant reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the planning commission finds that the subject amendment to the PUD is minor in nature. In making this determination, the planning commission has reviewed section 36-254 of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, is there support for? Supported by Commissioner Coteau. Okay, any further discussion on the major minor? Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Corto,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes. All right,
It's minor.
so now we can move to the discussion of the content.
If I could.
Commissioner Hyde, yeah.
In response to Commissioner Moore, I would say piecemeal is not how I looked at it. I looked at it as precedent. So we would be setting a precedent here.
That's right.
And we would be using other signs as, all their variations as precedences guiding us, some of which we want to not ever repeat. So I can see the wormhole, the can of worms we'd be opening here by using other examples to guide us in this choice. I think it comes down to what the applicant is requesting, why they're requesting it, and whether it is really a detriment to not grant it. Because right now we have a guideline, it says 15 feet. We have an ordinance, it's not a guideline. And they're asking 5 foot further away from their building. And they're claiming that it's more visible. I'm not sure whether it would be or not. I know driving down the road myself, when I look at signs, especially one like this that has a logo that if I'm going to Wheels in Motion, I know what I'm looking for. And as long as I get my eye caught, I'm gonna know I gotta turn at the next turnaround if I'm coming east, or I'm gonna turn in at the next driveway if I'm going west. So 5 foot is not gonna impede me when I'm on the correct side of the road at all. So if I'm headed west and I'm on, the northern portion of Jackson Road, and I'm gonna turn in, it's not gonna keep me from seeing it. And if I'm coming east on the southern part of Jackson Road and I'm looking for it, there's a discussion about whether that tree is going to impede the view or not. Personally, I think if it's further back, that tree might get in the way longer, but still, you're looking for a sign that's lower than the lowest branches of the tree. You're gonna see it. Yeah. That tree is further away and the sight lines are gonna be, I don't care whether it's 10 or 15 feet, I think you're gonna see it. So I'm not really quite sure that they're gonna get much more visibility out of it, that's all. That's my thoughts.
Other commissioners?
I don't know if I can really expand too much more on either Commissioner Moore or this comment, and I'm somewhat in agreement. I'm not sure I see a big difference between the 10 feet and the 15 feet. And my bigger concern is just looking at the pictures of the tree. I can see where that tree is going to get pruned or cut down to get more visibility in the future. It's really not uncommon because you want that visibility. So, and I'm also looking at the recommendation from the consultants who are essentially recommending, denial of this proposal from going from 15 to 10 feet. So I'm in agreement with the recommendation that I think it can be placed at 15 feet. I think you will have good visibility, and the tree will be protected. So I'm not inclined to support it.
I have a question
Yeah.
about, we can not support the 15 feet, but of the amendment to have the sign, do we have to approve even
Something.
something?
So the amendment is
Or not have to, but.
the amendment is to allow the sign. And then I think so first you're allowing the sign, and then secondly is the location. And so I think as a condition of approving the sign, you can say that it has to meet the 15-foot setback.
I
That's
just
how
wanted to
that's
make
how
sure.
That's how I look at it.
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Do we have a requirement in our ordinance that there can be so many signs within so much footage? Because I'm concerned about, I mean, more signs. I mean, how many signs go in that little area between those two drives?
So this is a PUD, it's zone plan unit development, and when this plan unit development was approved, they were allowed one sign. And so now there are two signs, because Carlisle was granted a minor PUD amendment to allow that sign, and now you're gonna have a third sign. If any other sign wants to go in this development for a monument sign, they would have to come back to you for another amendment. But there is no distance requirement. Typically, one property gets one monument sign. And there are 3 properties as part of this PUD. And each one now, with this request, would have one monument sign.
And when you say there are 3 properties, what are the 3 properties?
The 3 properties are the Carlisle Grill, the Old Theater, and then the multi-tenant retail. There are 3 separate the 2 parcels on Jackson Road on either side of the driveway, that's 2, and then the theater.
And then there's room to improve, to create more development in the back adjacent to the theater.
And that property would be allowed one sign. Because it's one property. And unless there was a major amendment to the PUD that created more property, a division of that property, at that time you would be considering some other sign at that time. So as of now, it's a PUD that has 3 properties. It was allowed 1 initially. Carlisle Grill got 1, that's the second property, and then this would be the 3rd property. So they each will have 1 monument sign, and that's what we allow.
And I thought we've had, in other projects about the signage, I thought we had discussions about when there's businesses on a property. I know there are 3 different properties, but I thought we had discussions about creating one sign that allowed up to so many businesses.
We do.
Is that in our ordinance?
Yes.
Okay. And but
he's not asking for that. He's
No, I
asking for
understand.
1 monument sign with 1 tenant.
And because it's different properties and the PUD was approved that each property could have a sign.
Each property could
We're
not
just-
have a sign. That's why he's coming back here to ask this.
Only one sign for the whole.
Only one
PUD.
sign for the whole development was allowed when it was approved.
Yeah.
Then Carlisle added.
And the fact that we've agreed in 2015 or 16 to this Carlisle sign, Carlisle Restaurant, we're in a pickle because instead of us saying, you need to create a sign that has room for the other tenants. But anyway, okay, that was just a question. Thanks a lot, appreciate it.
Other comments? Yes. Commissioner Koto.
So I, in general, agree with the point about we have the ordinance, we have the setback, let's try to stick to precedence unless there's a compelling reason. And I hear you that you're concerned that at the speed the traffic is going, the visibility with the greater setback would be less, and so it could be more of a hazard. I guess at this moment in time, I don't feel like we have compelling evidence to support that contention. So right now we have a suggestion that the visibility would be better 5 feet closer. We have a suggestion that it might not be, and we don't have clear evidence to decide one way or another. So lacking that clear evidence, I would either be inclined to stick with what we have or table the proposal until there's more evidence.
Yeah, and I would add, may I ask a
Yeah,
question of
go
the?
ahead. Applicant?
You're proposing that 10 foot would be more visible. Are you against having a monument sign 15 foot back? Do you think that that would be visible to the users of your?
In my opinion, and doing signage for over 40 years, I would say that it's not really the 5 feet I'm looking for. it's for the visibility aspects of the sign, and that's it. You know, if you say it's 15, I'll go with 15, but it's just more of a safety thing. When the building, you're going east and west, all the building signs are allowed 2 signs. There's one on the front and one on the back, okay? So not having the option to have a building sign, which is 87 feet back, this is the next way to solve this issue for my clients. We went through the Board of Appeals and they were denied because of the existing sign, and the only thing they suggested is that Sun and Snow would have to be 30 square feet, then Wheels in Motion for a wall sign would be 30 square feet. But in lieu of that, the move sign never should have been there. Okay, then we would have been able to allow to have a wall sign, and it wouldn't even be here today. But in this case, they need some visibility. I mean, they're taxpayers, and it's the safety reasons first. All the other things are really secondary in this particular case. I mean, I've walked by there, I drive by there like 5 times a week. I've looked at it from every angle, every possible, going at different speed, what I can see. We had a little cardboard mock-up out there, the visibility aspects of it. I even went that far to see. So it's really not, if you won't give me the 5 feet, I'll take the 15 feet and be happy, I guess, so.
Is Sun and Snow a property owner at that location?
Pardon me, I'm sorry?
Isn't Sun and Snow a renter at that location?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
They're all renters there,
Right.
everyone.
Not a paying property owner at that location?
No, but Gus, that owns the property, he is a well-known man in Scio Township.
Yeah, so Sun and Snow traditionally has been in Westgate for multiple decades. I shopped at Sun and Snow for a long time. Then they moved over.
The library was correct, yes.
Yeah, then they moved over to Wagner Road,
Yeah, that was just an outlet for
and then
them.
they moved over to
Well,
where
they
they're
did
at
both
today.
at the same time, they Wagner and on Jackson Road simultaneously.
Once that other business moved out.
And they closed that because it wasn't working out. It was more of a warehouse area for them. And they did originally have some retail, more focusing on swim apparel.
All right, any other comments?
I think, I think it makes sense to allow the sign with it would be consistent with the 3 properties. I don't feel like there is, real compelling reason not to meet the 15 feet. That's kind of where I'm landing.
So I would not support the sign for the reasons I stated before. I think that's another opening the door. How many more people can get signs out there? And what is going to be our compelling reason to deny somebody? And then, of course, I've already spoken to the 15-foot thing, but that's just me.
Can I make one more comment? I mean, in lieu of what I'm asking for, I know kind of the background of why the Carlisle sign was allowed. They built it after the fact. I come before the boards, go every time to get a sign permit or a zoning permit or a sign permit, I do the right stuff. I go here, get my approval, go next door. They build a sign without a permit, then the board allows them to keep the sign. So is that, I mean, you already opened the can of worms up, right? And I'm not asking to be next to Carlisle's sign 14 inches from the sidewalk. I'm just asking for 5 feet for more of a safety reason than for a safety visibility reason, not to get it closer to the road. I mean, there's basically, in that island before the road, there's 20 feet from the sidewalk. I mean, from the curb to the sidewalk, there's another 5 feet. And that's 37 feet, that island, and I'm asking it to go back 10 feet instead of 15, so, I mean.
Your words are not lost on me. I think
Right,
this
you
is-
know, I
I've
mean,
been on this
everybody
commission
knows.
for a year in December, And the one thing I've learned is that it depends on who's sitting in this chair at any given time.
right.
And that's a problem with consistency in governing
Right.
this township.
Right.
And I have even voted on things despite my not wanting to, because I believe we should be consistent, where we've given this project leeway, or we given that project, but we don't want this, so I've dealt with that, and I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm uncomfortable with it as a commissioner, and I don't think that's a way to run any government. I mean, there's always exceptions that you
Sure,
change, you
sure.
waive, or whatever. So I'm not saying that we have to be so monolithic that we never appreciate where there's it's of importance to waive or give the variance or whatever the issue is. But I'm finding that one of our problems is, in my view, is that it depends on who's sitting in the chair and who's on the board of trustees, or who's the supervisor at the time. Depends on what gets done. And I dare say, I imagine that sign for Carlisle was a part of that. So I can't speak to that. I feel you on what you're saying. I just don't feel comfortable continuing to do that.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure we're concise in our thoughts. Yeah, Commissioner Hyde.
I would like to ask the question, why originally the PUD was granted one sign and one sign only? Is there an ordinance that says for a given development that there only be one sign, or was it just part of the agreement that was made?
That was just part of the development at that time. Only one sign was proposed.
That's what I thought. I didn't think that there's an ordinance that says you can only have one sign per cluster of 3 businesses that are being developed. So the sign is not the issue, or the ordinance about sign is not the issue. It's the agreement that was originally made for the PUD that limited it to one, so people have to ask for another one.
Correct.
So it's really not that we're bending the sign ordinance. It's that we're modifying the original agreement that just happened to only allow one sign.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
So
there is an ordinance on the 15-foot setback. But then
Yes.
the other piece is what the approval of the PUD granted,
Right.
which was one sign, yeah.
Yeah, so another way of looking at it would be, if we didn't agree to grant the third sign, we're really denying a property right that we've given to other people. Each property has been able to have one sign in the past.
Exactly, this is our problem.
Well,
That we've created,
No, they only
No.
asked
because
for
we
one
approved the
sign.
Carlisle sign.
Well, no, because if this development was one property, okay, they would be allowed one sign. This property is 3 properties. This development is 3 different properties. So they're entitled by ordinance to each have a sign. So now the Carlisle
By the
sign.
PUD.
By our sign ordinance.
Right.
But they chose as a PUD to have one sign.
Okay.
Okay, so what we've done is we've allowed even the Carlisle to have the sign for their property. They're asking for a third for a property. So we would be denying them basically a property right not to be able to have a monument sign. Now, it's a different thing about the 15 feet, but a third property is entitled to a sign.
And that analysis, I presume, would be applicable to the cigar parlor too.
If they put it in
According to
business.
you, we would be,
Well,
we
except
couldn't
it's
deny
not
the
another
cigar bar.
That is not another property. Property is defined by a parcel. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there are 3 parcels of property here. Each parcel can, by ordinance, have a sign.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's a little different than,
Yeah.
yeah. So they chose as a PUD just to have one sign, but they are entitled to have a monument sign, so.
Then why was, if it's one sign, why did Carlisle get to take it? It seems like they didn't get permission.
No, they were not the first sign. The
Oh.
theater sign was the first
Theater,
sign.
quality theater is a
And
sign.
then Carlisle asked for a minor amendment to have a monument sign.
After
As
they
the
built
second
it.
property, after they built it.
Carlisle, I mean, the movie sign is
So
probably
they asked for
2
forgiveness
feet by
instead of
3
permission.
feet.
They did, but it was granted, and they were allowed to have that monument sign. Now, this is the third property asking for a third monument sign, which, as Jan stated, if these were zoned general commercial, all three of these properties, they all would be allowed one monument sign. But because they were part of a PUD that was rezoned to a specific site plan that had one sign, these three properties, two of them have never had a monument sign until they've asked for these minor PUD amendments.
So what's going on with the theater sign right now, since they're out of business?
That will go with the property.
And
The
then
theater
they'll
property.
want
And we
to
can't
change to
put
it.
this sign on that theater sign since
No,
they're,
because it is not the same property.
but it's part of the same PUD, which allows for
But they
one
have
sign.
three different, okay, but this is an old PUD, right? Now, we require that PUDs be under one common ownership. This PUD is not. It has three separate owners of three separate parcels. So we cannot make another property owner put a sign for someone else's business. I mean, we wouldn't allow an off-premise sign for another business.
Well, then if we were to at least go for the sign here, that sign should be a consolidated sign for that whole parcel, not just for whatever business that they're proposing.
We can't read the sign.
They can only, I mean, they could put up to four pieces of
Sure.
something on that sign.
Right.
They're not proposing to do
But they're
that.
not, but they could at some point in time, they could.
We could change.
It can
Okay,
change.
so as long as they could consolidate the sign with other businesses, they would not be coming back in
No.
for another monument
No,
sign.
that would be a sign face change. That would be a sign permit.
A sign
compliance
permit, so they could do up to four in that monument sign.
Without
But
changing
not
size.
four different monuments.
Right,
No.
you're gonna have the four businesses'
Yeah.
faces on that sign.
Right.
They can reduce. Okay.
I didn't know the number was four.
Well, it's four things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Four different businesses.
I have to say, I've looked for Wheels in Motion and gone up and down Jackson Road. And finally, just, my GPS said, it's right here. So I parked in front of Sun and Snow and went in and said, I'm in the right place. But I had no idea.
Yeah, because they did throw out
Yeah.
the glass piece,
Yeah.
but you can't see that. Yeah. Okay. So are we ready for a motion?
Anybody?
Commissioner Hyde.
Okay, I want to make sure I get the right one. That's major, minor. Okay, this one. Okay, for the Jackson Road Association PUD minor amendment, SP 21023, based on the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the Planning Commission finds the PUD minor amendment shows good cause and grants approval with change to this amendment. The approval is for a monument sign and not 10 foot from the property line, sticking with the 15 foot in the ordinance. We also want to cite the comments of the township planner, letter dated, and I don't have that date in front of me. It is March 23rd, 2022.
Yep. Okay, so the location noted noted in the application
But at a 15-foot setback.
at 15 feet from the sidewalk.
Well, I would stick with the.
From the property line.
From the property line,
Yes,
right, because
that's
that's how
correct.
the ordinance is written.
Okay. Is there support for Commissioner Hyde's motion?
Well,
Support Commissioner Cocho. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Corto,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
carries.
Thank you.
I'll be excited to be able to find.
All right.
There you go, you will. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can't always get what you want.
And thank you for doing things according to the
Sure, sure. You're more than
procedures.
welcome. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to site plan 22002, Optiflow, phase 2, new building.
I just promoted, Andy Klein. Andy, if you let me know if there's anyone else you want me to promote to a panelist. You're on mute, Andy.
Oh, unmute.
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
All right, great. Yeah, could we add Andrew Mosheev? He's our project architect.
Sure, promoting him now.
Thank you.
No problem. Take a second here.
I always feel like I'm like the big old.
He is promoted and he can unmute himself.
All right. Yep, so go ahead, the applicant can go ahead.
Yes, this is phase 2 of the Optiflow project. Phase 1, you had previously seen and was approved by the township board last week. What this is the 3 other buildings that will form this company's corporate campus. We've spent the last year, pretty much a year now, working with the township planning and engineering consultants and believe we've developed a really beautiful first-class development. And we'd just like to, I think we've pretty much, if you read the reports, have met the requirements and are looking forward to constructing this project over the next year or so.
Okay, did you have any? Yeah. All right, we'll go to Carlisle Wortman.
Sure, I'll just give some background for those listening that may not know a lot about the project. This is the second phase of the Optiflow project. The first phase included the 70,000 square foot Optiflow industrial building in the northwest portion of this parcel that's located at 7850 Jackson Road. It is zoned IRP Industrial Research Park. That first parcel for Optiflow was 20.38 acres. Like I said, that's the first phase of the development and included development of the private road to access the property from Jackson Road and the reconfiguration of the site into 4 developable lots. This phase 2 is for the 3 remaining lots that are not to be developed with Optiflow. It's actually going to be called Ucar Technology Park. Parcel 1 is 3.96 acres, and they're proposing a 35,475 square foot building with parking and associated site improvements. This property is adjacent to Jackson Road, and the J-ROD standards will apply to this building only in the development. Parcel 2 is 3.26 acres with a 29,995 square foot building proposed with parking and associated improvements. And the third parcel is 5.1 acres with a 34,310 square foot building with parking and associated improvements. As I said, the J-ROD standards will apply to the parcel 1, which is located adjacent to Jackson Road. The applicant has met all of the dimensional requirements for each of these parcels of the IRP zoning district. There are some woodlands and tree replacement that will be required, and there is some wetland mitigation that's going to be done off-site. The applicant has already received an EGLE permit for off-site wetland mitigation as part of phase 1 of this project, and we will be finalizing our review of that, wanting to know specifically where the wetland bank credits are going to be purchased from in the Huron River watershed area. As far as comments, as Andy said, we've worked with them for a little bit of time here, and this is a pretty clean site plan review as far as they're very ready to move to final engineering. I just want to add, we had 7 minor things that we would like as conditions of approval. They should provide the owner, use, and classification of the petitioner's parcel and all abutting parcels on the site plan. We just want the township engineer to review the best management practices to allow for the increase in lot coverage that for parcels 1 and 2 that's allowed by the ordinance. They're indicated they're going to have off-site wetland mitigation, and that's part of the EGLE permit. Demonstrate how the site impacted wetland. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at an old one. And then the planning commission should consider the additional parking as noted for parcels 2 and 3. Parcel 2, I believe, had 13 additional spaces they're requesting, and parcel 3 had 6 additional parking spaces. They also should provide a shared access easement agreement between parcels 2 and 3 for the shared driveway access between those 2 parcels. And then we just want to ensure that review of site access and circulation by the fire department and township engineer has been conducted, and they approve of those.
OHM.
Good evening. We recommended this project for approval in our review letter dated March 14th. We had 2 minor comments remaining. One of them was for the applicant to make sure that the water main easement is free of large plantings. There's currently some trees proposed within it. We just want to make sure that future maintenance is accessible as needed. And then our second comment was deferring to the Township Fire Department on the review and approval of the truck turning template regarding site accessibility. Both of those can be addressed during the detailed engineering phase. They're relatively minor. And then if you guys have any other questions for us at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner questions?
So I was looking, go ahead.
Go to Commissioner Koshov.
Just following up on the concern in the CWA report, do we know more from the applicant about where the wetland mitigation will be purchased from, or where it will be done? Can we address a question to them, Chair Culbertson, about whether they have any further information about that?
Okay. I don't have we talked, our wetland consultant sent a letter over to Laura just recently that these have already been purchased because we couldn't get the EGLE permit without showing them that we had already purchased the wetland for the mitigation. So we've done that. I don't have the exact location of that. I can provide it. I just don't have that at my fingertips, but we did buy them because we couldn't get the wetland permit out of EGLE without having done that, and that has already been done.
Other questions of the applicant? Commissioner Moore?
I was looking at some of the photos that you provided in your packet. So this would be light industrial?
They're essentially flex buildings. They could be it's a mixture of office and research type facilities, light industrial. It's an IRP zoning, so it's industrial research and professional, I believe.
Commissioner Hyde?
In following that line of questioning, these buildings, these 3 additional parcels that you're getting approval on are not going to be owned by OptiFlow, or not going to be OptiFlow businesses?
It's the same owner for all of these facilities. And they are going to like parcel 1, which is the one up on Jackson Road. They're going to use that, it looks like now, as a secondary, it's another OptiFlow related company.
Okay.
They're gonna have a campus here. So there may be a supplier or somebody that supports their research and technology in one of the other buildings. But right now, at least for the first building on Jackson, looks like it's gonna be their own occupying of that building for their own use.
And the other two?
Either there'll be somebody that, well, I'm guessing there'll be people that support their business, or it actually could be, another local business that wants to be located at that location as well.
Depending on how things work out?
Yeah, I mean, they're open, they're flexible. They don't necessarily need all 4 buildings immediately. They need 2. And then they're figuring out right now whether they'll lease those to people that support their operation, or they'll lease it to a third party. They're not sure yet.
Interesting. And the questions about the parking spaces, I'm assuming you have an answer for that?
Yeah, we wanted a little bit of additional parking because there was room for it, and every facility I've been involved in for almost 35 years, if you can have a little extra parking, it's not a bad idea.
Other commissioners?
I have just
Yes,
I'm
go
looking
ahead.
at the map location. This site is on the northern side of Jackson Road,
Yes.
but west of Baker. Okay.
Other questions? I had questions about the fire department requests. Do you have any issues with moving the FDCs, the hydrant, and Fire Marshal Armstrong asked if there would be any standpipe connections in buildings 1 or 2?
We're gonna comply with whatever he wants us to do because that's how it works, so I'm not concerned about it.
How about the standpipes? I mean, are these buildings suppressed?
Yes, all of them will be suppressed.
Okay, so then you will have a standpipe connection?
Yep.
Okay, all right. OHM, were you able to verify BMPs, or is that a later thing?
We have looked at them preliminarily. We don't anticipate any issues, but then that is more so part of the detailed engineering review. So that'll be kind of the next steps. But I know that there's an overall detention area with phase 1 and with phase 2 of this phase. So far it looks good. Don't anticipate problems.
And I had one more question of the applicant, and that was, you have that shared access for a couple of the buildings, but then the other buildings have 2 driveways right next to each other, and was just wondering, was there any thought to combining those driveways as opposed to having separate ones?
Well,
I'm just thinking less pavement,
Yeah, I mean, between the parking that we think is required and also to get the truck in, the truck traffic in efficiently and without any disruption, this was the best layout that we had come up with.
I wondered if there wasn't circulation, truck circulation. But
Well, that's the biggest reason that drove the design, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because and not knowing exactly, what the truck traffic will be going.
Right, that's why we did it that way.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Coteau?
So given that you are requesting extra parking spaces for parcel 2 and parcel 3, beyond what's required, often we ask whether you might do some of those as EV parking spaces. You know, it sounds like these will be buildings where employees will be parking there all day long, so EV charging could be a potential need, and, you know, we're looking at probably a lot of growth in EV usage over the next few years.
I mean, that's,
So the question is, would you consider installing EV parking spaces as part of the additional beyond required parking spaces?
beyond those that are already required, you're saying?
No, so for example, we require for parcel 3, we require 34 and you're putting in 40. For parcel 2, no, I'm losing track of it. For one of the other parcels you have, oh, here it is. For parcel 2, we require 56 and you're proposing 69. Can some of that 13 beyond our requirement be EV charging spaces?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can commit to a couple on each building. I mean, that's something that we probably would end up doing anyway later on, because it's something that's obviously changing in how we travel and what we do with electric vehicles now. I can commit to a few for sure, but beyond that, developers not on this call, and I can't. I want to be careful on what I overcommit to, but that I would tell you right now that it's probably going to be part of our plan to have a number of them for all these buildings, because that's just good practice right now.
I want to thank Commissioner Corto. She stole my thunder. That's exactly what I was going to ask. So we've been consistent. If you're
I think it's going to
you're asking for
naturally
EV.
happen anyway, to be honest with you.
Yep, it's time to do it during new construction.
We're doing it on most of the buildings we're building now. We're doing it. So I'm guessing it's going to be done to a certain extent. Can't commit to the exact number right now, but I've no problem with the concept.
So preliminary PUD, sorry.
This is a final.
This is a site plan, so this is a by right, they're meeting all the ordinances, so this is a by right, so this is a site plan, but we only see it once. And then they go through final engineering and it goes to BOT for a by right. So this is our last view.
I have a question then. About the EVs, do you know what level of EVs you're putting in?
No,
Level 2 or 3?
Yeah, that I don't know yet. I don't know that yet.
And your other developments, what level EV parking spaces do you put in?
You know,
I would think the answer, Andy, I think the answer is level 2.
Is it level 2? Okay, there you go.
At least level.
Having just installed one in my office.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Oh, right.
You're gonna be there 8 hours. That's good enough.
Yeah.
For employees, that's good. A question, this is also future-proofing the development and making sure that you have huge, flat roofs, and that you make sure that the structure is set for solar, so they can also be solar ready. One-story buildings do wonders as far as being net zero and also making financial sense for the owners when they have 1 meter. So just that obviously is not a request, but think of future-proofing your buildings.
Is it possible to ask them to consider buildings be solar ready?
That's what she was asking.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the basic. I mean, if you want to make sure you have the structure there. Yeah, because you have to add the meters afterwards and stuff like that, so, yeah. Okay, any other commissioner comments? All right. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
This is a question for us to consider, but it's wonderful that they're willing to consider EV parking spaces. Do we want to make a contingent number per building or per?
And it would be, well, it would be based on because of the variance request of the additional, or the deviation request for additional parking.
Right, that's, you know more about what those numbers might be.
Well, I think you could say, I think they were willing to do, the discussion was 2 per building, and the question is whether, and you could also say that they would be putting in 2 per building, but you could make another, 4 of them or something ready, which EV ready is just putting in the conduit, so it's easy to, once there's a demand, to put in the
I would
others.
expect them to be installed as part of this, not ready, not just conduit, but they would actually have the charging station there, that they would be installed.
So a certain number of
Yes,
spaces.
the question is how many, is
What
it
is-
2
what's
per
the number?
building?
Yeah,
You know,
well, that's what I
that'd
was
be a total
thinking of,
6,
the
or
2 per
since it's only
building.
two of them that are exceeding the parking, maybe the one that was at 6, it's 1 station, and the one that's at 13 or 14 spaces, put in 2.
To do 2.
But there's 2 and 2, right?
Yeah,
So
you
2
pair
and
them.
4, maybe something
I
like
don't
that.
have a problem putting another 2 at the building that doesn't require extra parking either.
Oh,
So 2, 2, and 2.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I would
Okay.
think that'd be good. And more if you're willing, if your client's more than willing to go for
Or
more.
make more, or put more conduit in for
Yep.
more.
Or yeah.
The conduits will be done anyway because
Yep.
we have to, it has to be in when you pave, so it's already there, so.
Mhm.
I don't see that as being a major issue.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. We'll entertain a motion? Somebody else.
I think I have it maybe.
Okay.
For site plan number 22002, Optive Flow Phase 2, based upon the information received from the applicant and reflected in the minutes of this meeting, the Planning Commission finds that the final site plan for Optive Flow Phase 2, SP number 22002, meets the required standards and findings for final site plan approval pursuant to section 36-180 of the zoning ordinance and recommends approval. The final site plan is granted with the following conditions. Concerns noted in the township planner's review dated March 21st. Concerns noted in the township engineer's review dated March 13th, and contingent on including 2 EV charging stations per building parking lot.
Okay. Did you say 14th or 13th?
I said 13th. Did I misread
I'm
that?
looking at March 14th on their loading.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that correction.
And I think we want to say that, the additional parking is approved based on 2 EV charging stations per building being provided.
I would suggest minimum of 2.
Minimum.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So to
Because they
modify that,
obviously
the
might think
additional.
that they want more. And do we need to talk about the shared drive agreement and
Those are in the report.
the solar-ready construction of the roof?
That I don't.
They
think we
consider
can make-
doing it.
That they consider, yeah. Consider solar-ready roof structure.
Can't make them,
Right.
just suggest.
You accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I would second that.
All right. Have motion for approval. Any further discussion? Okay, a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Commissioner Courteau,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, yes, Commissioner Culbertson.
Yes.
Carried.
We lost our audience.
Hold on, can I just go back? I missed, who seconded the motion? Courteau made the motion?
Hyde.
Thank you, Hyde. Thank you.
Sorry.
You were writing fast.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Can I make one additional comment?
Please.
Sure.
I heard that somebody who called in had made some less than flattering remarks about Doug Lujan. I wanted to make the record straight, at least with my experience, and I have worked with him for almost 25 years. He holds you to the letter of what is required. He's extremely thorough. He's fair, but he's reasonable, but he's a very solid guy, and I've worked with planners throughout every community. He doesn't give away anything. So I didn't want anybody saying anything disparaging about him because that has not been my experience with him at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Thank you.
Appreciate hearing it.
Okay.
Chairperson Culbertson?
Yes, Commissioner
May
Moore.
I make a recommendation that we table the reports and commission activities given the late hour and go right to the approval of the minutes? I don't know if there's unless there's something burning necessary that in these committee reports that we attend to.
Does anyone have
I just have two very quick.
Yep.
One is that for those interested, the BOT is having a special meeting on the budget tomorrow. So for those of you interested in the budget, and LPC's next Saturday's at Scio Preserves hike is this Saturday, April 2nd at Liberty Pond. So of course, we always welcome everybody to join us.
That's good.
Do
All right.
you need a motion for that?
Sure. Okay, so we're
Because
gonna.
we did approve the agenda.
Yeah, that's true. Due to the late hour,
Sure.
Commissioner Moore made the motion to,
I would second that.
okay, second by Commissioner Hyde. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're not doing the reports and going right to the minutes. I do want to say that there is a proposed amendment to the minutes that would include the link to the video that, oh boy.
Oh, yes,
Yes.
the resident.
For the
Miss
part, the
Easter-
resident, yeah.
Easter Day.
Yeah, Kim Easter,
Easter Day.
Easter Day.
yeah, Kim Easterday's video link, and that,
That would be in these minutes?
yeah.
So,
Well, the
they
link to-
tried to submit it and couldn't.
Yeah, and now we have the link and we can amend it, we can, either we amend the minutes or, yeah, because we didn't deal with it under correspondence, so we should amend the minutes to include the link, and they did up a little amendment to the minutes that we can include, if we so choose.
Okay.
And since we keep the minutes, or we prepare the draft minutes, do we need to put that into this to submit, or do we just?
They, actually, Christy and Cheryl worked out an
How
actual
to do it.
amendment that had the link, and
Okay.
yeah,
And they know how to put it into these minutes?
correct,
Perfect.
if we amend it.
I didn't know if Chris was gonna have to do it.
Okay. So, no, Chris doesn't have to do it.
And I did, this Easter Day gave us some photos at the last planning commission meeting. And somehow they got caught up in my papers and when I was scanning my notes to the file. So I did turn those into the office.
Yeah, to be included in the.
Yeah, there were 3 photos that she had provided us.
Right.
I would move to approve the minutes from the March 14th, 2022 Planning Commission.
With the amendment of Kim.
With the amendment to include the Easter Day video as a video link.
Support?
Any other discussion? Okay, do a voice vote. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved as amended. Entertain, any other business before the planning commission?
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Moore, support by Commissioner Hyde. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned at 10:49.
Excellent.
Thank you.